And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. Hello there, very good morning. It is Tuesday the 4th of January. This is Breakfast on GB News TV and now on your radio. Yes, you can find us on DAB Plus as we test our new transmission. Let us know how it's sounding, and hello to you if you are already listening this morning. And if you're watching us this morning, don't forget, you can now take us with you on the go wherever you are in the UK on the radio. So coming up this morning, the cost of living. This year's crunch may leave families having to choose between heating or eating. So we're asking you, how worried are you about being able to pay your bills? It's back to school time for some children across the UK. We'll be speaking to a parent about how they're feeling. Plus, this morning, the migrant crisis is back in the spotlight as the number of crossings across the Channel trebled last year. What more can the government do? So, as always, we want to hear from you. Are you worried about the cost of living? It's being dubbed the year of the squeeze. Let us know your stories. Lots of people expected to be living in poverty by the end of the year. Join that conversation. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews. So the time is 6:01. Our top story this morning, and parents are sending their children back to school this week as the Christmas holidays end. But there is a bit of uncertainty about how this school term will look as Omicron continues its spread. Staff shortages, COVID testing, and now masks in classrooms. What will school look like when the students do get through those gates this morning? And is it likely to change? Well, here to help me find out is David Harkin. He's the CEO of 8 Billion Ideas. That's an innovative educational company. And he's also a parent. So a very warm welcome to you, David. Always a bit of a nervous day, isn't it? The first day back, getting the uniforms out, making sure all the homework's being done over the holidays. But there are extra things to think about. If you've got secondary school-age children, you've got to make sure they've got their masks, and all kids being asked to test and make sure they're negative before they go in. Are you feeling ready?
As ready as we can ever be as parents. Good morning. Congratulations, by the way, as well. Happy New Year. I think I'm very similar. I've got a 5-year-old boy and a 3-year-old boy at home, so one in year one going back today. And I think parents are probably feeling a little bit relieved after a busy holiday period, but also excited. I know personally that my child has benefited hugely from being in school. A couple of years ago, he was really struggling to speak at the age of 3, and he's now in year one, absolutely flourishing. Can't wait to get back. So I think I'm probably the same as most parents across the United Kingdom. Looking forward to the children going back. A little bit nervous, just as students are, as parents are, and teachers are. But excited for the new term, and I feel that we've got a really exciting year in education to look forward to.
We have an exciting year in education to look forward to, assuming there are no further disruptions. Now, ministers have been preparing schools and teachers for what they're describing as a big bang of staff shortages as well as lots of student absences. I think before term finished for Christmas, there's something like 250,000 pupils at home isolating. Nobody wants to be having to keep children at home during this period. And of course, the disruption does interrupt learning. How worried are you about all of those things?
Yeah, very, very worried. At my organisation, 8 Billion Ideas, we work in every part of the sector all over the world in about 500 different schools. And I think it's really important to say our teachers have done an amazing job through the pandemic. It's over 650 days since initially schools were closed. And we've got to be really careful with that narrative when we say that schools were closed. They've never really been closed. They've been open physically, virtually, hybrid, these crazy combinations along the whole of the way. And we've seen some amazing innovation every single day. So it's been a very busy period. I think as we were leading up to Christmas, obviously we were beginning to see a lot of staff being being taken ill by COVID. And it's been a huge amount of pressure on our schools. I don't think sometimes people quite realise what happens in schools on a daily basis. They're brilliantly busy places. They were brilliantly busy places before the pandemic. You chuck in a pandemic and they become brilliantly agile, innovative, adaptable places. And I just have to say a massive well done to the million people working in education. There are over 1 million people in the United Kingdom, 650,000 teachers, 350 support staff in schools, and they've done a sterling job. And I know just from the head teachers that I was speaking to before Christmas and after Christmas, I think the biggest concern, obviously, is just teacher shortages in the coming weeks, and the madness that could create. I don't agree that we have to keep children at all costs. I think we all agree that children need to be in schools. The benefits are extraordinary. I think we were reminded in the pandemic that the single purpose, the most important purpose of a school is that sense of belonging, that community, and we want children in school. But I think maybe I'd feel a little bit differently if my Toby, who's 5, was in school and every single day a new body was in front of him. I'm not sure how I'd feel if that was the case in the coming weeks, but fingers crossed for some of the measures which are being taken, a little bit of common sense, we can have a really good start to the term. I think it's also really important, Isabel, to mention that it's not always a one answer for the 32,000 schools in the United Kingdom. We can't just have this blanket yes or no or approach. Every single school is different. Every single school is unique. And every single student out there has an amazing imagination. They're just all on different journeys with the skill and belief that they've got.
Yeah, it's an exciting day, the back to school day, and I love the shout out for all of the amazing teaching staff that you're talking about. But let's also not forget the amazing parents. And when kids are at home isolating because of this variant, it has huge impacts on working parents. So a big shout out to them as well. David, lovely to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Let's take a look at some of the headlines this morning. The number of migrants attempting to cross the Channel to the UK trebled last year. More than 28,000 risked their lives to make the dangerous journey in small boats. 2021 also saw a record 1,185 illegal crossings in a single day in November. Ministers are being warned current policy to put a stop to it isn't working. A US judge is to hear arguments over a motion to dismiss a civil sex lawsuit brought against the Duke of York. Virginia Giuffre suing Prince Andrew for alleged sexual assault when she was a teenager. But the Duke's legal team deny the allegations and will make their argument to dismiss the case at a hearing today. The founder of blood testing startup has been convicted of fraud. Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty of turning her company into a sophisticated sham. It's duped investors and patients into backing revolutionary finger-prick blood testing technology that never actually worked. More than 500,000 people have now signed a petition to get Tony Blair's knighthood rescinded. The former Labour Prime Minister was included in the Queen's New Year's honours, but the decision has caused controversy. People are unhappy about Blair's role in leading the UK into war with Iraq in 2003, with a statement on the petition saying that he caused irreparable damage to the fabric of the nation's society. Now, as we've covered, this year is going to be the year of the squeeze for British families as gas prices soar. But now, fresh food prices are rising too at their fastest rate in almost a decade. This year's cost of living crunch may leave families having to choose between heating or eating. And we can cross to our GBNews national reporter Paul Hawkins, who joins us from Westminster this morning. Look, fresh food now being added to this long list of issues that is going to cause real headaches for families this year. Why is this now becoming a problem?
Well, according to the British Retail Consortium, it's essentially down to labour shortages. Shortage of labour means that it costs more to find the people you need to help to supply the fresh food to the supermarkets, and so that drives up prices. They're calling for greater flexibility with visas to try and fix short-term labour problems. So they say that's the main reason for the rise in fresh food prices, up 3%, as you say, Isabel, the fastest rate since April 2013. When you factor in as well the huge increase in energy bills, up to £500 to £800 this year on the annual household energy bill. There are big decisions for the government to make. Now, at the weekend, the 20 Conservative MPs and peers wrote to the Prime Minister calling for various measures to try and reduce the cost of energy bills. They want to see the 5% VAT rate on energy bills scrapped. They want to see the scrapping of the green levies, which accounts for 15% of dual fuel energy bills. And they reckon that that could save the average family up to £255. So not getting rid of those energy price increases, those household bill increases, but certainly mitigating it. But at the moment, the way it's looking, with energy bills rising, with fresh food prices rising, there is that choice. It's a bit of a cliche, but it is true that some families this year are going to have to make very difficult choices between heating and eating.
And of course, Paul, that will be a big issue in red wall constituencies, and this will be a big problem for the Prime Minister this year. And he's really under significant pressure to tackle this.
Yeah, he is under significant pressure. I mean, he can't do anything about the wholesale cost of gas, which is really pushing energy prices up. But what the government can do in terms of the levers it can pull are taxation. And that's why this group of Conservative MPs wants the VAT on energy bills scrapped. They want the green levies scrapped. That is the amount of the cost of your household bill that you pay that goes towards renewable energy. That's gone up over the last 10 years. So the government can control taxation. For the Bank of England, it's about interest rates. We've already had one interest rate rise. There could be more on the way. Many analysts say there will be more on the way as the Bank of England tries to control inflation by raising interest rates. Of course, the problem with raising interest rates is great for savers, rubbish if you're a homeowner and you have a mortgage. So there are decisions for the Bank of England to make. There are decisions for government to make, and those political decisions really could be the doing or undoing of Boris Johnson, who already, of course, is facing political pressure. He's behind in the polls, and towards the end of last year, his judgment was seriously called into question. So can he get these kind of decisions right?
Yeah, very difficult year ahead for the Prime Minister. Good to see you, Paul. Thanks very much for that. Should we take a look now at your Tuesday morning front pages and start things with the Daily Telegraph? It's leading with, "We cannot jab the entire planet every 6 months." It's a quote taken from their interview with the chairman of the government's vaccine advisory group, the JCVI. He says a fourth COVID jab should not be offered until there's more evidence that they are effective. The Daily Mirror, meanwhile, reports, like many of the front pages, on the newly published Virginia Giuffre Jeffrey Epstein deal. Ms Giuffre, who has accused Prince Andrew of sexual assault, which of course the Duke denies, agreed with Epstein's lawyers in 2009 not to sue anyone connected to Epstein. That could be described as a potential defendant. The Times headline reads, "We're on the right track to tackle the virus." Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that currently Plan B is enough to combat rising infections, but warned that hospitals will face increased pressure in the coming weeks. Here's your Guardian. It's leading on the danger of rising COVID cases, reporting health leaders have warned the Cabinet that sectors of the NHS are in a state of crisis. The Daily Mail warns of COVID chaos as millions self-isolate. The paper says children returning to school risk being forced to head home if their teachers test positive for the virus, while employees face possible widespread rail cancellations due to train staff being off work. The Independent headline also focuses on the newly released Virginia Giuffre deal. The document, of course, revealing that Jeffrey Epstein had paid $500,000, that's around £370,000, to end her claim. Ms Giuffre is suing the Duke of York in a civil case for allegedly sexually assaulting her 20 years ago. He has consistently denied those claims. The Eye reporting on its front page that NHS leaders have warned the PM over growing COVID staffing crises. The paper focuses on several NHS trusts declaring critical incidents, with some maternity units closing and up to 9-hour waits for ambulances. The Daily Express discusses the Prime Minister's hopeful outlook on the pandemic. They say there's a reason to be positive, given Omicron is, according to the paper, considerably milder than previous variants. That's actually quoting the PM there. The Daily Star, as ever, goes completely off topic. Their headline reads, "Cannibals in space." They say a top space boffin's warned that if a trip to Mars goes wrong, the crew would quickly resort to eating each other. My goodness me. To show this, they've stuck Hannibal Lecter's actor Sir Anthony Hopkins in a spacesuit on their front page. They are having some fun there, I think. OK, let's talk about back to school again now. For some children in the UK, of course, that is today. In Wales, slightly different setup. Let's bring in our reporter, Lily Hewitson. She's got the latest for us. Lily, when are children in Wales heading back to the classroom?
Yes, good morning, Isabel. I'm outside a high school here in Cardiff. Now, the gates of schools across the country here in Wales, like this one, are closed for pupils for the next few days, whilst teachers and staff decide how children are going to be learning in the new year. Now, the Education Minister, Jeremy Miles, announced last month that teachers were going to be given 2 days ahead of the new term to prep for the lessons in 2022. Now, the Education Minister asked the staff to basically look at all the possible outcomes. So if perhaps entire classes, the entire year, or perhaps in the entire school may have to learn remotely going into the new year. So they've kind of got two options. Do they want to do the lessons over Zoom perhaps, or will children be able to come back into the classroom? Now, schools and councils across Wales have been handed the task of doing their own risk assessment. So they're having to look at the COVID situation in their local area to decide what will be best for the children and staff going forward. So like I said, that could mean that entire classes are having to learn from home, or perhaps the entire school, but that's going to be up to the individual school themselves to decide what works best for them. Now, pupils and staff in secondary schools in Wales, when they do eventually go back to school, will have to wear masks in communal areas and in classrooms where social distancing isn't possible. And staff and pupils are also being asked to test 3 times a week prior to going back to school on a Monday, Wednesday and a Friday to see if they have any positive results before entering the school premises. Now, according to the latest Public Health Wales data, which came on the weekend, there are 14,000 new cases of COVID here in Wales. Now, the weekly infection rate across the country rose to nearly 1,200 cases per 100,000 people, which is the highest numbers that we've seen here in Wales throughout the pandemic. Now, in Cardiff in particular, where I am at the moment, the case rate is at 1,586 cases per 100,000. So staff and teachers are going to be looking at numbers like this over the next few days to decide how children will be learning here in Wales come Thursday.
OK, Lily, good stuff. Thank you very much. Well, stay with us this morning. Coming up in around 10 minutes' time, Eamonn will be joining me in the studio. But first of all, the time is 6:16. Let's get a check on your forecast.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold with snow showers and gales in the north. Early rain will clear the south. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will be windy and noticeably colder than of late. There'll be blustery showers in the west, but remain dry with sunny spells in the east. The southeast will have a band of rain with a little hill snow possible. This will slowly clear southeastwards with brisk northerly winds following. Wales will be cold with blustery showers in the west. Elsewhere, it will be dry with sunny spells, but it will feel cold in the wind. And it'll be a noticeably colder day than of late across the Midlands. It'll be mostly dry, plenty of sunny spells, the odd shower possible in the north later. The strong northerly or northwesterly winds will add to the cold feel across the northeast of England. And it will be mostly dry here with sunny spells. Isolated showers are possible in the west. It's going to be bitterly cold today across the whole of Scotland with gale-force northerly winds. There'll be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers, bringing blizzard conditions at times. Northern Ireland will be cold and windy. There'll also be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers with the snow mainly over the hills here, feeling very cold in the wind. And it will remain cold for all this afternoon, especially in that wind. Wintry showers extend into North Wales. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you this Tuesday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. Very warm welcome back. It is 6:20. This is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel on GB News. We're live on your TV and radio for the first time this morning. Now, more than 28,300 migrants crossed the English Channel into Britain last year, 3 times as many as the year before. Ministers have been warned that unless the government changes its dangerous and callous policy, more arrivals and more drownings will happen this year. A Home Office minister said the government's reforming its approach to asylum through its new plan for immigration. But will this be enough? Well, here to help me find out is Henry Bolton, OBE, border control expert and former leader of the UK Independence Party. A very good morning to you. Look, first of all, let's talk about this significant rise that we saw last year. Is there a clear explanation for why it went up threefold last year? And can we expect that that curve to continue in 2022?
Well, we can certainly expect it to continue into 2022 and increase, possibly dramatically 2 or 3 times, if the government doesn't get a grip of it. Now, why this has happened, there's a whole range of reasons. We're feeling the impact of conflict and instability in other parts of the world that has occurred earlier in the year and the year before, 2020. We're seeing a slight change in the way that migrants are moving. So there's and we're seeing the news spread that the UK is allowing anybody in, pretty much, if they can reach UK shores. So it seems like a good option. You're guaranteed to stay if you reach us. So those are the reasons. And those are the reasons that the government needs to tackle. Its new immigration plan goes some of the way. It's not really a cohesive plan. It's more a statement of policy intent. In that sense, it's quite good, actually. I'm surprised when I read it. But there are still some significant holes. I mean, one of the things that's good is that they are now going to define in statute what it actually means to be in fear of persecution. Before, that wasn't the case. There was no real definition of it. And yet, people were granted asylum on the basis that there was reasonable grounds to suspect somebody would be persecuted. Well, if you don't know what the word persecution means in law, in this sense, then how do you do that? So these things are being tidied up. That's good. They're loose ends, but it's not really a cohesive plan.
OK, it's interesting because the Home Office have said that many migrants are asylum shopping country to country. And as you say, if this is now defined in statute exactly what persecution means, presumably it will clamp down on that issue of not just staying in the first country where they seek or they find safety, but then going on to choose which one will benefit them the most. Is that a consideration, do you think, that is being addressed by this new Nationality and Borders Bill?
It's not being sufficiently addressed. I mean, it's not a plan. The bill is not a plan. It's a law. And the I'm afraid the Home Office, the government as a whole, seems to have rather taken on a European codified law approach, which is you don't need a plan, you need a law. Well, I'm sorry, but if you want to do it effectively, you come up with a strategy, you come up with your plan, and then you check that against legislation. If the legislation doesn't facilitate you implementing that, what you need to do, then you amend legislation. You don't do it the other way around, which is exactly what the Borders Bill has done. They put the cart before the horse. And now what we see with this plan that came out on the 2nd of December is actually, the immigration plan is actually really, as I say, just a statement of policy intent. How any of this is going to be done is not clear. What the timelines are not clear. And the other thing I would say is that this puts all of the onus on the Home Office. We've got 11 different agencies presently working on our maritime borders, government agencies, and yet there is no, and they all report to different government departments, ministries, and there's no cohesive cross-governmental strategy to frame the work that they all do. Whereas in the US, for example, all the maritime assets come under one agency, and it's the US Coast Guard. Here we've got 11. So, of course, we've got a mess.
Nobody would argue that they've got immigration under control in the States. Of course, they have a huge problem with it as well. Look, we have to leave it there. Henry Bolton, OBE, border control expert. Lovely to get you on this morning. Thanks very much for joining us. And if you're listening on the radio, watching us on the TV, stay tuned our way. We're going to be crossing live to Dover a little bit later on this morning. Our homes and security editor, Mark White, will be there for us throughout the morning. Coming up, Eamonn will be here in the studio. We'll discuss more of the cost of living crisis, hearing from you, of course, on your doorstep, and taking a look at this morning's front pages. Plus, we'll be reading all your emails and tweets. See if yours will make it onto the screen and the radio. That's after this.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
And at 6:30 on Tuesday, the 4th of January, this is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel on GB News TV and now on your radio.
You can watch us on the TV as well as listen to us on DAB radio. It's a historic day as we test our new transmission, so let us know how it's sounding.
Coming up
this morning.
The cost of living. This year's crunch may leave families having to choose between heating or eating.
So we're asking you, how worried are you about paying your bills?
Make a break for Prince Andrew as a judge will decide whether to throw out the US civil sex lawsuit against him. We have the latest.
GB News' North West of England reporter Bradley Harris is live for us this morning.
Yeah, as we launch our new breakfast show on television and on radio today, I'm going to be live in the village of Trawden throughout this morning, finding out what you think to those big news stories right on your doorstep.
So, folks, if you are listening to us on radio, let us know what it sounds like. It's all a big test day, so we want to know we're loud and clear to you on the radio as well as TV. And we want to hear from you because that big cost of living story.
Yeah, it's going to be the year of the squeeze. Are you worried about it? Will you be able to pay your bills if they go up by as much as 50%, as some people are suggesting by the end of the year? Get in touch. Email gbnews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at GBNews.
So we have put it out there this morning on Twitter. We asked you what your concerns were going into this new year. And as you just pointed out, Isabel, they're calling it the year of the squeeze because, and of course, what we've all paid for Christmas, the credit card bills are going to come through in January as well.
The credit card bills are coming through. We've got the national insurance price hike in April. We've got mortgages going up. We've got wage stagnation. We've got gas bill prices. And we're hearing this morning fresh food prices going up as well. A bit of a nightmare. And huge pressure on the PM as well. And
a lot of you are having yours saying it doesn't cost you anything, which is good. So let's have a look at those. First up, Ben Gunn. Ben Gunn has tweeted saying, "This is the highest order effects of climate policy." And on the same theme of this being as an effect of government policy to counter climate change, Bernie has tweeted that they predict more deaths due to climate policy than from COVID.
Roger says the reason for food hikes and fuel hikes is because of a lack of labour.
Richard says, "It's my guess that it's globalists supporting big business, government and philanthropists that are manipulating market prices in a bid to divide the nation into haves and have-nots."
And we'll be reading out more of your emails and your tweets in the next hour. This time, though, we want to ask how you feel about the Channel migrant crisis. Are you seeing a solution in all of this that the government hasn't yet identified? We were just hearing from Henry a moment ago, Henry Bolton. He was saying that in the States, they have multiple agencies tackling this issue. In the UK, it just kind of falls on the Home Office. And do you think that this new Nationality and Borders Bill is going to stop it? It's supposed to beef up the border security's abilities to turn boats around. Will that be the answer?
Well, it's a big concern to you viewers and listeners, of course, but I mean, the dilemma for any enforcement agency or any government is how to get a policy without making it look heartless and without being heartless. I was just reading some of the stats on people who are in those dinghies, for instance. Apparently they carry an average of 28 people per time.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And the year before, so that was in 2021, and in the year before it was something like 13 per boat. So we're seeing this tripling of people crossing illegally. And of course, we tragically saw those drownings, didn't we? Do we need to open up more legal routes for people seeking asylum? Or is the solution, as the Home Office is suggesting, going to be these offshore processing centres?
Why now? Why is it all happening now? Why are the figures rising now? What's bringing this about? Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk and let us know your thoughts on that. Let's have a look at the latest headlines as you're waking up on this Tuesday morning.
The US judge is to hear arguments over a motion to dismiss a civil sex lawsuit brought against the Duke of York. Virginia Giuffre suing Prince Andrew for alleged sexual assault when she was a teenager. The Duke's legal team deny the allegations and will make their argument to dismiss the case at a hearing today.
Motorists in Britain are being hit with more than 22,000 parking tickets a day. That's according to new research that private firms are handing out 4 million fines between April and September, despite car usage being down on pre-pandemic levels by a quarter.
And David Bowie's estate has sold his publishing rights in a multi-million-dollar deal. Warner Chappell Music has acquired it with the agreement covering songs from 26 studio albums released during the British artist's 6-decade career.
As we have covered, this year is going to be the year of the squeeze for British families as gas prices soar. But now fresh food prices are rising too, that at their fastest rate in almost 10 years. This year's cost of living crunch may leave you having to choose between heating or eating. And if it does, let us know.
So let's bring in Paul Hawkins, our national reporter this morning, who joins us from Westminster. I mean, the idea that people would have to choose between eating or heating, absolutely abhorrent in modern Britain. Here we are in 2022. Why is it now that the cost of fresh food is increasing?
Yeah, good morning, Isabel. Morning, Eamonn. Essentially, it's the British Retail Consortium saying that fresh food prices are going to rise at their fastest rate for almost 10 years. And the reason they say, the big reason, is labour shortages. There simply aren't enough HGV drivers, there aren't enough pickers, there aren't enough people in the processing plants, and so they're having to pay more in wages, and they simply can't meet demand. So the cost of wages is going up, and they simply don't have the numbers there to help supply the fresh food produce. They're calling on the government to make the visa scheme more flexible so that more workers can come into the country to fix the problem in the short term. But that's the big reason why they're saying that fresh food prices are rising. And as you say, Isabel, people are having to choose between eating on the one hand with fresh food prices or heating, because energy bills are going to soar. The energy cap, which is reviewed twice a year, it covers standard, variable rate tariffs. That's going to be reviewed very shortly for April, and they're expecting it to go up as much as £2,000. So that could put anything up from £500 to £800 a month on the annual household energy bills. Now, a group of Conservative MPs and peers have written to the Prime Minister asking him to essentially get rid of taxes on energy bills, the 5% rate on VAT and the 15% rate on green levies, which is essentially the part of the energy bill that you pay that goes towards renewable energy. They say that by cutting those taxes from the bill, it could save the average family up to £255 a year, which would help to mitigate some of those rises in energy prices. But with the rising energy bills, plus rising fresh food prices, plus tax rises on the way in April, with a rise in national insurance contributions, also the rate at which you start to pay income tax will be frozen. That will bring more people into paying tax. Also, council tax rises are on the way as well. It's going to be a really difficult 6 months, at least 6 months, for a lot of people in the country.
It's an interesting dilemma, Paul. People will be thinking this morning, yeah, of course, I'll have my taxes reduced on that. But then, of course, it's the climate which will suffer, and that will lead to a dilemma in many people's minds. But it'll be interesting just talking to you guys who are listening or watching today. What would you do? What do you want to see being done? Because, Paul, could you put a duration, a length on this crunch, how long it's going to be? When can people see light at the end of the tunnel, do you think?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, they are saying that for the first half of next year, inflation will soar, and then potentially it could dip. It's really difficult for economists to make forecasts at the moment. When you ask an economist what's going to happen in 2, 3, 4 years' time, they'll give you a bit of a vague answer, but they'll be more certain about what's going to happen in the next 6 months. Even that's quite difficult at the moment. Growth in the economy is the Chancellor's one get-out when it comes to where he's going to raise money from for spending, or he could put it towards tax cuts. But growth at the last quarter of last year, 0.1%. The economy is recovering better than expected, but it's still way smaller than it was before the pandemic. So there's a great degree of uncertainty, and really we don't know when this squeeze is going to end, hopefully towards the end of next year, but no one can be certain.
Thanks, Paul.
Oh, it's all very slow today, isn't it? Many times do you want me to
leave
say?
him hanging.
Cheers, Paul. Thank you, Paul. There you go. But we do want to say good morning, hello to you. We want to hear from you on the programme today. So what do you think about what we've just been discussing today? To help us do that, our GB Northwest of England reporter, Bradley Harris, is on your doorstep. And whose doorstep will that be? Let's find out. Who do you have with you today, Bradley?
Hello, good morning both. Yeah, I've come to the village of Trawden, a beautiful village here in Lancashire in the northwest of England. This place is fantastic. It's got about 2,000 residents that live here. They've all clubbed together to try and save certain parts of the town, like the library that they've built in recent years, and actually most recently the pub that, fingers crossed, we might get to visit later. They've actually clubbed together £520,000 £500 to save their local boozer. Incredible stuff. Of course, one big issue that we're talking about today is, of course, the cost of living. How have people been coping with things like gas bills, for instance? They've been skyrocketing. Well, let's knock on the door of this gentleman's house and hopefully Bob is inside. I want to chat to Bob. Bob, good morning. You're live on GB News on television and now on radio as well. Good morning to you. I just want to chat to you about the cost of living. One of the big subjects that we're talking about today, bill prices going up.
Yeah.
How have you been finding it? Are you struggling at the moment?
Yes, I am. Well, no, not struggling. There's lots of people struggling, and I can't say I'm in that category. But obviously, finding things difficult. I mean, I'm on a pension, same as lots of people, so it's pretty much fixed income. So yeah, things like fuel and energy prices, particularly, I think that's what most people are talking about at the moment. Anyway.
Yeah, of course, fuel, a massive one as well. We've seen, I mean, just visit any petrol forecourt, you'll see those numbers go up. I've noticed on your T-shirt there, you work here in Trawden in the village at the library and shop as well. You'll be back and forth doing deliveries, back and forth to the shop. That's going to have an impact, isn't it?
Yeah, and it has an impact on us, but it's a good impact from the shop's point of view because people are shopping local more because they don't want to do the travelling. Although obviously they're still conscious of prices, but we try to keep our prices competitive. But yeah, it has an impact on everybody, I think, regardless. Everybody's feeling it.
Yeah, and just going into the new year, what are you hoping for? Are you saving a bit more now, considering that things are going up?
Yeah, definitely. Saving as much as we can. But being very conscious of what you're spending. Yeah, maybe some of the things you might have done before are not doing now. Maybe a few less treats and stuff like that, sort of thing. Just generally conscious about money more than we've had to be in the past anyway, yeah.
Right, wow. And just talk to me about Trawden. I mentioned it there, 520 grand to save the boozer. That's actually not far away from where you live.
Yeah.
Tell me about the community. There is a massive sense of community spirit here, isn't there?
There is. We recently moved. We stayed in the village. We've lived in the village for 30 odd years. But when we decided we were going to downsize, we wanted to stay in the village, particularly because of the community spirit. I mean, it is just fantastic the way they've done on with the community centre and the shop and the pub. It's just absolutely fantastic, and it makes a big difference to everybody. The general sense of well-being, people, and I think it's important for things like house prices because everybody wants to come to a place that's a nice place to live. So that's a benefit for everybody.
Yeah, and just finally, just to bring it back into the cost of living again, and also house prices actually, in those big cities, Manchester, Liverpool, you can expect the cost of living maybe to be a little bit more. Here in Trawden, where there's around 2,000 or so residents, what do you think? Do you think there is a difference compared to your big cities than it is here in Trawden?
I suppose it's difficult for me to say really because it's a long time since I've lived in a big city. But even if I think we're better off here personally. But even if we weren't, I'd be willing to pay a bit extra just to be here, or a place like this at least. Yeah. But yeah, I generally speaking, I think we're probably better off than some people in some of the cities. Certainly from what I've seen on television and things like that. Anyway.
Great, brilliant. And look, thanks for getting up early for us on GB News.
Yeah, I'm off to work.
I was going to say, are you off to work now?
Yeah. Well, I volunteer at the centre, so I'll be down there later, yeah.
I mean, you volunteer 5 days a week?
No, as and when.
Great,
as
brilliant.
And when, yeah.
Good to chat to you. Thanks so much, Bob.
Thanks very much.
I'll leave you to crack on and get on with your job. Good for you to chat to us at this time in the morning. Here in Trawden, like I say, a village of 2,000 people clubbing together to save their local places. Also great to hear his thoughts on the cost of living. One of those big national stories that we'll be talking about this morning on television and on radio.
Indeed. Bradley, thank you very much indeed. Let us know how your radio's sounding. We'd appreciate that. And we're going to take a look at the newspapers today, or a read of the newspapers if you're listening to us on radio. Front pages stack up like this. The Times, first of all, the headline reads, "We're on the right track to tackle the virus." Boris Johnson saying that currently Plan B is enough to combat rising infections. Daily Mail warns of COVID chaos, though, as millions self-isolate. The paper says children returning to school risk being forced to head home if their teachers test positive for the virus. Daily Star, as ever, goes completely off topic. The headline reads, "Cannibals in Space." They say a top space boffin has warned that if a trip to Mars goes wrong, the crew could quickly resort to eating each other. In the studio to review most of those stories, our journalist and author Joanne Nadler and Polly Mackenzie, who is chief executive of the Demos think tank and a former advisor to the Lib Dem leader Nick Clegg. A very good morning to both of you. Very good to see you. Listen, Joanne, we want to start with that story about jabs. This is the front page of the Daily Telegraph. So what are the sage scientists saying?
Yeah, well, this front page story relates to a large article they have inside the paper, which is an interview with Professor Sir Andrew Pollard, who's the chairman of the JCVI, the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation. And it's interesting because he strikes a pretty optimistic tone about where we are in terms of the
vaccination process.
Well, vaccination process, but also kind of on a more global level in terms of how we're doing with getting through the pandemic. And there are really a number of very interesting things that he points out in his interview. Now, he was one of the scientists that was actually involved with developing the AstraZeneca vaccine. One of the more controversial things he says is that some of the comments made by European leaders about the safety of that vaccine has almost certainly led to problems in Africa and other countries where that would have been a very useful vaccination to have used. But as far as we're concerned in this country, what he is saying is that he doesn't feel we should necessarily go down the route of countries such as Israel, who are talking about now having a second booster. He's saying...
Why not? He's saying we can't jab the whole planet every 6 months.
Quite. He's saying it's not practical, and we really ought to now be looking at a way of learning to live with this virus and prioritising the use of vaccination for those people who are particularly vulnerable.
How does that make you feel, Polly, when you listen to that? I mean, he's saying it's not practical. I don't really care if it's practical. I just want to know if it works or not.
Well, yeah, but simply, if you can't do it, there's, 9 billion people in the world. If you want to try and vaccinate everybody, you'll end up leaving behind some of the most vulnerable, and actually that costs lives too. So we need to think about, over the kind of 5-10 year horizon, we don't want to go through this every winter where we sort of slightly panic in December, have a panicked vaccination rollout, which we know has cost capacity in the rest of the NHS, but actually think kind of systematically, and how do you adapt vaccines to new variants as they emerge? We have to accept that however much we might want to get rid of this horrific disease, there just actually isn't a pathway to doing it.
Yeah.
And so what do we do to try and minimise the disruption to lives and livelihoods over the long term? And you have to think about that on the global scale.
I mean, he addresses that point that you've raised there about the adaptation of the vaccines towards the new variants, and suggests that that can be done in such a way that we don't need to have what you've referred to as sort of a panic rollout of boosters. I mean, I actually think the government's been pretty successful with the booster rollout.
Yeah.
But as you say, it can't always be seen to be something that we're doing in reaction to something that's come along.
But if you're doing it logically, Polly just mentioned there the capacity in the rest of the NHS. I just don't feel there are enough government ministers standing up and saying, look, do you realise by not getting vaccinated or not following the procedures, there are people who can't have their cancer scans, their hip replacements.
Do you not feel that? I think it's an overwhelming message that we've heard across the board from ministers,
Why
from
aren't
the media.
people listening to that, do you think?
Well, the vast majority of people are listening to it, aren't they? I mean...
Well, not according to the capacity within the NHS, they're not. I mean, these things are being put on hold all the time.
Sorry, I think we might be talking at cross purposes. I mean...
I'm saying, if you've got COVID, if you're not being vaccinated, if you're not using your mask, then hospital staff can't do the operations, the day-to-day operations that they're supposed to do in saving lives.
They have made that case with respect to vaccines, but we know there's still a kind of a hardcore of people who are either haven't got round to it or are very, very sceptical. And the government is nervous, I think, partly for political reasons about going for those people because, there's lots of controversy around whether you should have a vaccine mandate. But the question, again, around masks or around restrictions is, again, I think they've allowed it to be turned into this story that is, we shouldn't panic about COVID and therefore we shouldn't have a huge impact on our economy by closing things down. We shouldn't be making people wear masks. And I don't think they have been making the point that Eamon's just making, that if we have restrictions, that helps to retain capacity in the NHS for other conditions to be treated. People kind of think, oh, the NHS shouldn't concentrate so much on COVID. Well, the way to help the NHS concentrate less on COVID is to try and keep infection rates down if we possibly can, and try and have more vaccinations and encourage people. And, you know, I think there is more that could be done there.
Well, I think, in fact, Sir Andrew Pollard also says that he's minded not to support any kind of mandating of vaccines because he feels that it's counterproductive, and I would agree with that.
OK. Let's move on now to this price hike and the cost of living, which seems to be very, very frightening for everybody. You know, people, they go out to spend at Christmas, the bills come in January, and then on top of that, this whole supply chain. And how long is this going to last, this energy crisis as well?
Well, I mean, energy bills is just part of a really alarming situation that we're facing around inflation. Other papers are talking more about the rising in food prices. But energy bills are such a big chunk of people's disposable incomes. And they're predicting now, the Mirror is talking about a rise of £700 of people's energy bills as the kind of higher wholesale prices feed through to the price cap, which we know, even at the moment, the price cap has forced lots of energy companies out of business. And what's interesting, so the Mirror's got a picture here of Martin Lewis, the money-saving expert, who, you know, for years has been telling us all the way to deal with this is to switch. And the reality is there's been a big change in both his advice, anybody's advice. You can't get out of these energy bills by switching. That there's actually nothing really that consumers can do. It has to be addressed at the national level. So we're now starting to see campaigns both from climate sceptics on the right and from the Labour Party to say we need to take some of the taxes, the VAT, potentially some of the green levies off energy bills in order to help customers. There's also talk about whether you could have a sort of price fixing mechanism, contracts for difference in the wholesale energy market to bring those prices down. Everybody is kind of out there, people who run think tanks like mine, out there trying to say, what on earth can we do about this? Because I think, if you look forward the next 6 months, if people are absolutely suffering with huge energy bills, huge cost of living hikes, you know, when we were promised that Brexit would reduce energy bills and reduce food prices, the government is going to be really, really sensitive about that. So we will see a lot of good ideas and bad ideas kind of circulating in the policy ecosystem.
It's not a good look, though, if you start doing away with the green taxes, though.
I mean, it's a very interesting idea that there could be sort of a political alliance between skeptics, climate skeptics, as Polly calls them, on the right, and perhaps some members of the Labour Party who feel that this is going to cause problems in a very real sense to a lot of their supporters. Yeah, I mean, it's a dilemma for Boris Johnson, particularly because he's pinned so much of his foreign policy in many ways on his climate position. But I would very much favour going down that route, certainly for the short term.
OK. If you're listening to us on DAB radio for the first time, this is the newspaper review on Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel, Joanne Nadler there, and Polly Mackenzie. Polly, I'll come to you now about the COVID and the pandemic wreaking havoc right across workforces in Britain.
Well, I mean, we're just talking about the long-term global scale. But actually, over the course of the next couple of weeks, I think lots of employers in every sector, but particularly public-facing public services, just got a complete nightmare on their hands with the numbers of people who are infected. And they might have what doctors would call mild illness. But of course, mild illness can mean, like I was in December, stuck in bed for 3 days, feeling absolutely miserable, completely incapable of working. And that has a huge impact on their ability to keep going, to kind of dig out of the economic crisis we've had. But particularly, so the Guardian's reporting that there are critical incidents at NHS trusts because of COVID staff shortages. Some of the papers are reporting around schools who may have to close classes, move to remote learning. Again, simply because they haven't got the teachers there. And we're also seeing trains cancelled, buses cancelled.
Yeah. So, and yet at the same time, we're hearing that, ministers are suggesting that the peak of Omicron in London may have passed. So I think it's absolutely right that we should be warned about the potential consequences. But it also may be a little bit premature to be assuming that these things are going to happen. just they have to prepare for them.
Yeah, and it is very much an acute problem. It is something that we may face over the next few weeks. It's not going to still be a problem in March or April because, again, if everybody has it now, that's going to have an impact on...
all those unpredictable things as well, that, you may be OK, but your kids have been sent home from nursery school or whatever it happens to be. And
then you've got to look after them. Exactly, the knock-on effect.
Or you may be OK, but you can't get to work because the bus is cancelled.
Yeah. Joanne, right, so the Prince Andrew situation as well, and it's going to be in court today. Now, what are they trying to do in court today? This is Virginia Giuffre. This is a deal that she signed 12 years or so ago.
I mean, this story is obviously in a lot of the newspapers today, and essentially it revolves around, as you say, a deal that Prince Andrew's legal team have revealed that Virginia Giuffre signed many years ago, sort of absolving her or requiring her not to make any further claims against people who would be considered to be third parties involved with Epstein. Now, it just seems to me, I mean, I don't know how Polly feels about this, that there may be a sort of a technical legal application which could work, presumably, in the Duke of York's favour. But on the other hand, it does feel very uncomfortable to me that he's requiring this as a way to kind of avoid having to really answer any of these accusations. And if we recall other sort of similar cases, such as all of the stories around various historical sex abuse cases and things like this, there have been, this whole controversy about the use of non-disclosure agreements and things like that, and whether they're really applicable
outside their territory.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What do you think there, Polly?
Well, I think it's tricky for Prince Andrew, who, of course, denies all of these allegations. But part of his defence when Epstein was facing conviction was that he was really friends with Ghislaine Maxwell, not with Jeffrey Epstein. Now she has been convicted. And now his defence is that he shouldn't have these claims made against him because he is part of Epstein's circle.
Yes, exactly.
Because the documents claim the document is an agreement not to chase after people legally who were associated with Epstein. And so it's just this uncertainty, I guess, as to what is Prince Andrew saying. Is he saying that he is closely associated with Epstein and therefore protected by this document? Or is he saying that he is not closely associated with Epstein and therefore doesn't need to be...
It just feels a shame that if to get out of making a defence by relying on sort of what seems to be a technicality.
OK. Well, look, let's talk about this some more because both Polly and Joanne will be back in an hour's time with more views from more newspapers. For the moment, thank you both very much indeed.
The time is 6:56. You're watching Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. Coming up, many schools across the country are returning this morning, but with fresh restrictions and increased pressures from COVID, how do you feel about children back in the classroom? And we're going to be live in Dover talking about the migrant crisis. Stay tuned on TV and on radio.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold with snow showers and gales in the north. Early rain will clear the south. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will be windy and noticeably colder than of late. There'll be blustery showers in the west, but remain dry with sunny spells in the east. The southeast will have a band of rain with a little hill snow possible. This will slowly clear southeastwards with brisk northerly winds following. Wales will be cold with blustery showers in the west. Elsewhere, it will be dry with sunny spells, but it will feel cold in the wind. And it'll be a noticeably colder day than of late across the Midlands. It'll be mostly dry, plenty of sunny spells, the odd shower possible in the north later. The strong northerly or northwesterly winds will add to the cold feel across the northeast of England. It will be mostly dry here with sunny spells. Isolated showers are possible in the west. It's going to be bitterly cold today across the whole of Scotland with gale-force northerly winds. There'll be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers, bringing blizzard conditions at times. Northern Ireland will be cold and windy. There'll also be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers with the snow mainly over the hills here, feeling very cold in the wind. and it will remain cold for all this afternoon, especially in that wind. Wintry showers extend into North Wales, and that's how the weather is shaping up for you this Tuesday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. Very good morning to you. It is 7 o'clock on Tuesday, the 4th of January. This is Breakfast with Eamonn and with me, Isabel, on GB News TV and now on your radio.
Yeah, you can watch us on the telly as well as listening to us on DAB+. An historic day as we test our new transmission. So let us know how it is sounding and where you're listening to us from.
Coming up, the migrant crisis is back in the spotlight as the number of channel crossings trebled last year. What more can the government do? We'll be speaking to our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. He's live in Dover for us in just a few moments.
And it's back to school time for some children. We'll be speaking to a parent about how they're feeling.
And today is D-Day, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, Divorce Day. That's the first working day after the Christmas break where lawyers see a spike in inquiries for divorce. We'll be talking to psychotherapist Lucy Beresford a little later in the programme.
So we want to hear from you. Are you worried about your children as they head back to school? Are you worried about divorce? We've
Yes.
Is that you speaking personally?
No,
Just meant yes, our people.
I just noticed that hadn't been scripted, but we both automatically were thinking we'd ask the punters about that. It's going to get people going this morning. I just know it.
If you work in a solicitor's office today, are you expecting a big mail bag? We've been asking this morning whether or not you're worried about the cost of living, which is a big thing. I think it's frightening many people. So join the conversation. You can email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Don't forget, you can tweet us as well at GB News.
Now, in the last hour, we asked you what your thoughts and feelings were on the Channel migrant crisis. Here's what some of you had to say. And, you know, there's two ways of looking at this. The terrible human tragedy, or a lot of people who obviously have hearts of stone, like Leslie. Well done, GB News, for keeping the illegal migrant crisis in the news. No other channel is keeping this as a national security and safety issue.
Gary tweeted, we'll be reading about the migrant crisis this year and the next. Pretty and Boris need to get a handle on it.
Well, you know, I often think about, you know, politicians in this situation. You want legislation, you know what people are concerned about, you want to close the door, you want to do certain things about it. But at what price, at what cost? I mean, the human tragedy of all of this. I just wonder how many of you would think the same if you were actually standing down there, the way our reporter Mark White is, and we're going to him shortly, and seeing these boats arrive and seeing the people involved in all of it.
There is the human cost. There's also the actual cost. We've already given millions of pounds to the French to try and tackle the problem of these smugglers on the beaches. It hasn't done anything yet. How much more do we have to spend? And how many lives have to be lost before this problem is solved?
And Keith, this morning you're saying put the asylum users to good use. If there is a shortage of pickers and processors, why doesn't the government tell all these fit young asylum seekers you have to work for 1 year first and let companies hire these people on a minimum wage? Again, your views on that?
Yeah, Anne's agreeing, actually. She says if we're low on people to work in this country, why not give these people the chance for employment?
Kit, who's in Margate, she says, I'm disabled and was medically pensioned off 2 years ago. If I have to rely on just my pension, DLA and ESA, I lost the rest of my benefits when I was pensioned off. I'm 52 years of age. I do not have my boiler on as I can't afford to run it. I can imagine that is the case, Kate. I have to budget for every single bill that comes in. My energy supplier wanted to put my electric up from 70 quid per month. I have to now budget for 167 for just my electric.
Yeah, it's awful when you hear about this affecting vulnerable people, disabled people, and in many cases, people who are out working, who are going to be living in poverty. Look, lots of you this morning getting in touch about this. First, we're simulcasting on TV and on radio this morning. Nigel's emailed saying, hi, Eamonn and Isabel. I've been listening since the start at 6. It's been a smooth start and excellent sound quality. Thank you so much for getting in touch. I've actually even had a tweet this morning from Spain, one of our listeners saying it's crystal clear. So, in fact, it's confirmed. You can now hear us all around the world.
It's often been said, I have a good face for radio.
Don't do yourself down. Have been done too badly.
Anyway,
on
Kanta,
TV.
thank you. She says, I'm enjoying watching The Breakfast Show with my secret crush. Modesty prevents me telling you who that is. Must be Dan.
Not me.
Must be Dan.
It's not
Wooten.
me.
Yeah. I go to bed with Dan Wooten. I wake up with Eamonn Holmes. Heaven. Thank you very much, Kanta.
Back to the year of the squeeze, the cost of living crisis. We've got an email from Kate in Margate in Kent. In fact, we've already read that one from her. That was just in a different order. Don't worry. Lots of you saying that you're enjoying the programme this morning. Keep those thoughts coming into us this morning at GBNews, at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at GBNews.
We're just looking at this Channel Migrant situations. They trebled last year, more than 28,300 migrants risking their lives to reach the UK, including a record 1,185 in a single day. So an average of 28 people crammed into each boat. But ministers have warned that unless the government changes its dangerous and callous policy, more arrivals and more drownings will happen this year. Home Office Minister said the government is reforming its approach to asylum. And that's be through its new plan for immigration. But will that be enough? Here's our news, home and security editor, Mark White. Mark's live there on Dover. And Mark, you know, I was just replying to a lot of the emails that are coming in, and people are they're quite firm, and, you know, you could look at this and say quite cold about this. I said maybe if you were standing where you're standing, it would be hard to say don't let them in.
Good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. Yes, I mean, listen, it's a very complicated issue, and there are issues around certainly those who are trying to get across here because they are fleeing persecution and quite horrific conditions in countries like Syria and now Afghanistan. But there are other issues, of course, around whether these people should have claimed asylum in the first safe country they reached rather than travelling through a number of safe countries to get to the UK and to cross in that way. And amongst them as well is a very significant number who are coming across for a better life economically, who are not necessarily fleeing war-torn countries, certainly fleeing countries where the conditions and the governments are at best very dysfunctional, but not necessarily those that you would classify as refugees. So it's a complicated issue. I think the one thing we can all agree on, though, Eamonn, is that what is happening at the moment in terms of these criminal networks, organised criminal gangs, pushing them out into very unsafe boats to cross the English Channel is just not on. It is very dangerous. We saw that in November of last year with at least 27 people that we know of who drowned in that incident in the English Channel. And as you come to me, I can confirm to you, breaking news this morning, that the first migrant boat of 2022 is now in the process of being intercepted in the English Channel. It has been escorted, we understand, by a French vessel from France. That's something that infuriates our viewers and listeners as well, of course. And it is being now intercepted by the Border Force vessel Hurricane, which is on its way to meet that French escort. The French will say that, well, they can't stop and turn these boats back, because if they try to do that, the migrants on board threaten to jump in the water. It's just not safe to do that. And of course, the goal of those on the boat is to get picked up by a UK vessel. So as soon as they see Border Force arriving, well, it's job done for them, and they will absolutely comply and go aboard the Border Force vessel, but they're not as compliant, clearly and understandably from their point of view, in going aboard a French vessel. That's the French argument anyway.
So, Mark, good morning to you. Look, brand new year, same old problem. As you say, that breaking line this morning that we're seeing this happening already in January 2022. If 2022 is anything like last year, that trajectory just going up and up and up. Does the Home Office have a grip on this? Is the Borders and Nationality Bill going to change anything?
Well, to put it bluntly, no, the Home Office does not have a grip on this. I noticed that there's a subtle change in the language from the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, on this issue in her sort of New Year's message as she was talking about the priorities. Before, last year, she was talking about her determination to stop these vessels coming. Now she's talking about tackling this crisis. So, as I say, subtle change in the language coming there from the Home Secretary. And as long as I think the people smugglers, the organised criminal gangs, are not tackled on that side of the English Channel, then it's difficult to see really what can be done in any meaningful way, because there is a workable business model there that's very attractive for those that want to get to the UK, to come to pay £5,000 or whatever it is to get on that small boat and make it across to UK waters and to be picked up. It's been, you know, it's a model that's worked. The people smugglers only need to point to the various news outlets to tell those who are interested in coming across to the UK that 28,000, more than 28,000, crossed last year. And, you know, that's 3 times the year before. And it may well be more this year. I think it's extraordinary to think that out in the English Channel, conditions are not ideal today. The wind is not blowing quite as strongly as it has in the past week or so, but it's still pretty awful out there. The waves are quite high, but these criminal gangs are still pushing these people out in these flimsy boats. And I think we can see or expect to see more of that through the month of January and throughout this year. So, yeah, we could be looking at record numbers again, Isabel.
That was our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, we'll hear from you and see you again throughout the programme as the sun comes up. I mean, what a job having to do all of that, being in charge of immigration. And a man who's had such a job is Kevin Saunders, former Chief Immigration Officer with UK Border Force at Calais. Kevin, how tough a job was it for you? Is it an impossible job?
Good morning. No, it's not an impossible job. It was slightly easier in my day because we weren't dealing with people in boats. We were dealing with people in the backs of lorries. And you can stop a lorry, you can open it up, and you can get the people out. So that was much easier than this. This is an absolute nightmare. But let's be realistic about this. Nobody's forcing the migrants into the boats. They're coming to the UK of their own free will. Yes, there is a business model which the smugglers are on with, and we've got to stop them. But the French could do an awful lot more than they're doing now, and that's the big problem.
A lot of pressure on the French to step up their approach, as you say. We've spent a great deal of money trying to enable them to do that, and the government continuing to try and tackle this. Border Force set to be given stronger powers, not least to redirect vessels. How welcome do you think that approach will be?
Well, I don't know how you're going to redirect them. The Channel isn't the Aegean Sea. The Home Secretary has got this idea from when she went out and saw the Greeks doing what they do. It's going to be very difficult to push these boats back. I can't see any Border Force cutter captain willing to do it, to be honest.
What is the solution then, Kevin? Last question to you.
It is to get the French more heavily involved. We've seen in the press today that the feeling from the Home Office is that the French won't do anything until after the presidential elections in April. Then we'll have to see. But by then, we'll have had 12,000 people across the Channel.
Thank you, Kevin. That was Kevin Saunders, former Chief Immigration Officer for the UK Border Force at Calais.
Time now to take a look at some of the top stories this morning. And a US judge is to hear arguments over a motion to dismiss a civil sex lawsuit brought against the Duke of York. Virginia Giuffre is suing Prince Andrew for alleged sexual assault when she was a teenager. The Duke's legal team deny the allegations and will make their argument to dismiss the case at a hearing today.
The founder of blood testing startup group has been convicted of fraud. Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty of turning her company into a sophisticated sham. It duped investors and patients into backing revolutionary finger prick blood testing technology that never actually worked.
More than 500,000 people have signed a petition to get Tony Blair's knighthood rescinded. The former Labour Prime Minister was included in the Queen's New Year's honour, but the decision has caused controversy. People are unhappy about Blair's role in leading the UK into war with Iraq in 2003, with a statement on the petition saying that he caused irreparable damage to the fabric of the nation's society.
OK, obviously we want to hear from you throughout the programme. What do you think about the big stories today? Well, to help us do that, our GB Northwest of England reporter Bradley Harris is out and about to gauge your views. And tell us where you are, Bradley, and who you have with you today.
Yeah, morning both. I'm in the village of Trawden today in Lancashire. A lovely small village of around 2,000 people that live here. Very quiet at the moment, very cold as well. I've already seen some cars. One that's going past at the moment has snow on top of the roof. In fact, there is somebody cleaning the ice from the front of the car. We've also had a few dog walkers out and about at this time in the morning. But I've spotted in the distance one place has had the lights on, and it's the local shop here. This is a shop that's actually been saved by the local residents. The people that work here, I'm told, volunteer their own time to work in the local shop. I don't think it's open yet, but I know Sarah Swan is the person in there. I'm just going to knock on and see if here she is. Look, this is Sarah Swan, who is one of the people that works here at the local shop. Good morning, Sarah. You're live on GB News on television and radio this morning. Good to chat to you. We're talking about cost of living today and price rises in energy bills, but also things like fresh food. Wanted to come to the local shop because, of course, you sell groceries, fruit, vegetables. Have you seen your prices rise since you've been working in the shop?
Absolutely. We've held on as long as we can, but we've had to put milk up and bread, which are the basics, aren't they, really? And it's not just 1 penny, it's sort of 5p, and in some cases it's 10p. So, you know, it is noticeable for anybody, it must be. And I've noticed my own personal shopping bill is vastly increased.
What have people been saying when they come to visit the store to buy their goods? Because as you say, 5p on its own might not seem like a lot, but when you add it to a total weekly food shop, that is starting to rack up the pounds, isn't it? That's a lot of money then.
People don't tend to complain to us because we're a shop in Trawden that's voluntary and we're all volunteers, so they don't tend to moan. They're just really pleased we're here, so they don't have to trek 3 miles to the local supermarket. So they don't tend to moan. But privately, people have said a lot about the cost of living. They are really worried, and particularly energy bills. I mean, I'm a pensioner, and my electric bill has doubled in the last sort of 2 or 3 months, really.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, winter months, it's very nippy now, actually. Have you noticed that you've had to put more money on the meter? How are things looking at the moment?
I've got one of those smart meters, so I try not to look at it because it just goes up every day. Yeah.
So talk to me about the town then. I've been waiting to come to Trawden because it is, I mean, I've been here a couple of times before. It is a lovely village, lots of community spirit. Why do you stay here? What is it about this place that you love so much?
Well, it is fantastic, isn't it? I mean, it's the last spot before the Pennines, so the walks around are amazing. We're just below Bolesworth Hill, which is the highest hill in the South Pennines. Bit wet though, because we're on the west side of the Pennines, a little bit wet. But I came here about 45 years ago, and I've got to love the village. And I think this venture of opening the village shop and the library, it's really brought the village together. It's brought everyone together. It's given a hub with different groups meeting, having cups of tea and coffee.
I can see, actually, there's a big delivery van of bread that has just turned up. You've got the deliveries coming in. You're clearly back open for business into the new year.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to now this year? What are you hoping for? What are your plans for the local shop and the town?
The plans for the local shop, just to grow, get enough money to give back to the community. I mean, all our profits fed back into the community and community groups. And so the busier we are, the better the village will be, really.
That's brilliant. And can I just say, that delivery of bread has just got my stomach turning because I am feeling a little bit hungry. Do you have anything in the shop that I might be able to have?
Lovely sandwiches just arrived. If
Have you actually got some sandwiches?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, come on, let's have a quick look.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and get some a quick lunch here. I had some milk yesterday. What have you got here then, Sarah?
Tuna salad or chicken and ham.
Tuna salad will do it, yeah. How much is that?
That's £2.35.
£2.35. Right, I'll sort you out after this, but thanks so much. Tuna salad, and I promise I will pay because I managed to get a bottle of milk free. I know some people online said, Eamonn, that actually I should have paid for it, so I will pay you for that. Sarah, really good to chat to you. And you can see Ben, the cameraman behind us, almost tripped over the bread that has just turned up. We'll try and get ourselves around there. But amazing, isn't it? It's all happening here in Trawden.
Bradley, I was going to say we're going to have to rename this segment, not On Your Doorstep, but On the Scrounge, but you were going to pay for it, so that's all right.
Yeah, I'm going to have a good old munch on this now.
Enjoy.
Good man, enjoy. Coming up, it's back to school time, but are you up to date with all the latest restrictions that go with that? We give you all you need to know here on our GB News channel on TV and on radio.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold with snow showers and gales in the north. Early rain will clear the south. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will be windy and noticeably colder than of late. There'll be blustery showers in the west, but remain dry with sunny spells in the east. The southeast will have a band of rain with a little hill snow possible. This will slowly clear southeastwards with brisk northerly winds following. Wales will be cold with blustery showers in the west. Elsewhere, it will be dry with sunny spells, but it will feel cold in the wind. And it'll be a noticeably colder day than of late across the Midlands. It'll be mostly dry, plenty of sunny spells, the odd shower possible in the north later. The strong northerly or northwesterly winds will add to the cold feel across the northeast of England. It will be mostly dry here with sunny spells. Isolated showers are possible in the west. It's going to be bitterly cold today across the whole of Scotland with gale-force northerly winds. There'll be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers, bringing blizzard conditions at times. Northern Ireland will be cold and windy. There'll also be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers with the snow mainly over the hills here, feeling very cold in the wind. and it will remain cold for all this afternoon, especially in that wind. Wintry showers extend into North Wales, and that's how the weather is shaping up for you this Tuesday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Just gone 25 minutes past 7. Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel on GB News, live on your TV and your radio this morning.
Look, big thing that we're doing on this New Look show is making sure that punters have their views heard. We're trying to get out and about in communities. We've been asking you this morning how you're feeling about the big back to school today. Of course, everybody sticking on their uniforms, taking their packed lunches, and unusually having to do their COVID tests before they go to the school gates. Let's speak to parent Wayne Dixon now. A very good morning to you, Wayne. Joining us this morning from Leeds. Were you able to get your hands on a lateral flow test? Because they've been in short supply, haven't they?
Well, actually, I'm quite lucky because my kids are on teacher training days for the next 2 days. And I don't think we have to do them for primary school because my kids are primary school age. But I do have friends in high school who have really struggled to get out of the lateral flow tests.
Do you not worry, Wayne, that they're little mini germ spreaders and they're going to bring it all back home?
Well, yes, they probably are. But in terms of my kids at primary school level, I kind of think we have to learn to live with it. You know, what's the alternative? To stay at home with grandparents who are probably, you know, maybe in their 80s in that vulnerable group and putting them at risk. And I mean, 2 years on, you know, when are we having the conversation of how to live with it and when to live with it? That's kind of one of my big questions, really.
Yeah. I think parents up and down the country are bracing themselves for a bumpy spring term, aren't they? There's likely to be staff shortages, kids being sent home because they've got a positive test. It's going to be disruptive. Is that something you're worried about? And I don't know, you know, you said your kids are primary school age. I've got one in year one. His teacher said that his year group as a whole were further behind on maths than any other year one group that they'd ever known at the school, and they thought it was because they'd missed out during reception. So I wonder if you're concerned that this term could see some more disruption to learning.
Yeah, I think most parents are concerned about their kids' progress, and we all want our kids to do well. And I mean, I'm passionate about like my kids going to school because I want them to do well. I want them to get, a good job. I want them to have a good life. And I think most parents are on that page. And it's sometimes as well, you have to ask yourself, do children protect adults or do adults protect children?
Yeah. Well, that's the big question. We'll leave it there. Wayne, thank you very much indeed for getting in touch. Today is see, you're keen to get in here and debate this. Today is what's been termed Divorce Day, but what is it? Why do some lawyers love it? And should you be worried if you are in a relationship? We'll be finding out more about that at 20 to 7.
But up next, how do you feel about the record number of people risking their lives to cross the channel? We're going to be reading out your emails after this quick break. See you in a moment.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. Welcome back. The time is 7:30. If you're watching or listening to us, very warm welcome to Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. We're talking about migrants this morning. The number of them attempting to cross the Channel to the UK trebled last year. More than 28,000 risked their lives to make the dangerous journey in small boats. 2021 also saw a record 1,185 illegal crossings in a single day in November. Ministers are being warned current policy to put a stop to it isn't working.
An American judge is to hear arguments over a motion to dismiss a civil sex lawsuit brought against the Duke of York by Virginia Giuffre. She's suing Prince Andrew for alleged sexual assault when she was a teenager. The Duke's legal team deny the allegations and will make their argument to dismiss the case at a hearing today.
The founder of an American blood testing startup has been convicted of fraud. Billionaire Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty of turning her company into a sophisticated sham, duping investors and patients into backing so-called revolutionary finger prick blood testing technology that never actually worked.
Inverness Castle is to finally reopen for the first time in 200 years. It's a 19th century building and it's been previously used as a court and a prison, but it will now be turned into a tourist attraction. Scotland reporter David Donaldson has more.
Dominates the skyline of the Highland capital, the now Inverness Castle is to be transformed. £18 million of funding from the Scottish and UK governments will see it undergo a makeover to help attract more tourists to the area.
I'm really excited to let the public inside and also just to enjoy the building and the castle grounds themselves. We really want to bring the whole of the castle area into the public realm so that people from the Highlands and visitors to the Highlands can really have a place to just go and enjoy, whether they go into the visitor attraction or the restaurant or the shop, whereas focusing as much on the grounds themselves as we are on the building, just so that it's a great place to go and visit and stay for a while.
Over the centuries, previous castles were attacked and burned down. The last of these was destroyed by Bonnie Prince Charlie's Jacobite forces before the Battle of Culloden in 1746. But despite its grand history, the castle isn't being turned into a museum.
This is an example of one of the old cell doors that we've revealed that was covered over in plasterboard, and you can see that it's really tight, small space, and that was symptomatic of the whole building. You came into your cell block, the window was tiny, the bars were over the window, but we're going to try and keep these so that as you go around the building, you can read the story of how it used to be. And this space is going to become enclosed by a new single-storey link building. And the other interesting thing is the modern cell block, which was just behind me until recently, has now been demolished. And for the first time, we're seeing the original door openings on the back of the South Tower and the space as it's going to be in the new link building.
Highland Council are also working with the Great Tapestry Company to help produce the story of the Highlands.
Great Tapestry of Scotland is a chronological recording of the history of Scotland. We're working with the Great Tapestry Company who created the tapestry and Gala Shields, but this time it's not a history of the Highlands, it's the spirit of the Highlands told through the panels. So the Great Tapestry Company will work with the same themes that our designers are working with, but then they'll give the panels to each of the different hubs across the area, and the local stitchers will put their perspective into the panels in the same way where the local stitchers for the Great Tapestry added their own dimension to the themes that the Great Tapestry Company gave them.
Work here is due to get underway in February or March this year, with the castle set to open its doors to the public in 2025.
OK, time now to take a look at your Tuesday morning front pages and start with the Daily Telegraph. It's leading with, "We cannot jab the entire planet every 6 months." This quote is taken from the chairman of the JCVI, the government's vaccine advisory group. The Daily Mirror, meanwhile, reporting on the newly published Virginia Giuffre-Jeffrey Epstein deal. Ms Giuffre, who's accused Prince Andrew of sexual assaults, which the Duke has long-term denied, agreed with Epstein's lawyers in 2009 not to sue anyone connected to Epstein that could be described as a potential defendant. Here's the Times reading, "We're on the right track to tackle the virus." Prime Minister Boris Johnson, ebullient as ever, said that currently Plan B is enough to combat rising infections. The Guardian leading on the danger of rising COVID cases, reporting health leaders have warned the Cabinet that sectors of the NHS are in a state of crisis. Daily Mail warning of COVID chaos as millions are self-isolating. They say children returning to school risk being forced to head home if their teachers test positive for the virus. The Independent also focusing on those newly released Virginia Giuffre documents revealing Jeffrey Epstein paid $500,000 to end her claim. Ms Giuffre is suing the Duke of York in a civil case for allegedly sexually assaulting her. The Eye reports on its front page that NHS leaders have warned the PM over growing COVID staffing crises. The paper focuses on several NHS trusts declaring critical incidents. Here's the Daily Express discussing the Prime Minister's hopeful outlook on the pandemic. They say there is reason to be positive given Omicron is, according to him, considerably milder than previous variants. And the Daily Star off on a tangent. Their headline reads, "Cannibals in space." A top space boffin has warned if a trip to Mars goes wrong, the crew could quickly resort to eating each other. Just another good reason not to be an astronaut. Look, in the studio with me this morning to review the papers, the journalist and author Joanne Nadler, and Polly Mackenzie, who's Chief Executive of the Demos think tank and former advisor to Nick Clegg. Very good morning to both of you, ladies. Should we start with a piece in the Telegraph, Polly, about these super stranded patients that can't get out of hospital?
Yeah, as you've gone through the front pages, it's clear there's so many elements to this NHS crisis, and it's such a complicated system. And the Telegraph focuses in on this one piece of it, which is 3,000 more patients than last year are stuck in this category they're calling super stranded. They've been dischargeable for more than 3 weeks, and yet they're still taking up a bed in a hospital ward. at a time when we know that staffing beds, keeping beds open, is a huge stress to not just meet the needs of COVID patients, but also all sorts of other patients. And that's because of the crisis which we still have in terms of social care. Because again, we've got a staffing crisis in social care. We've got restrictions on care homes. And so you end up with these bed blockers, which sounds like it's their fault. It's not their fault, but bed blockers which gum up the system. And the money that the government put in to supposedly fix the social care crisis was first of all supposed to tackle the NHS backlog, but because COVID cases have gone up, the money for the NHS backlog is being spent on COVID cases, which means there's really no money for social care, so you just go round and round in circles, and it's a huge nightmare. And staffing, I think, is absolutely key to this. We have a labour shortage that's exacerbated in this couple of weeks by COVID. But if we want to kind of dig our way out of this, and instead of saying, I think, oh, the NHS has a crisis every Christmas, is what would it take for us to build an NHS that didn't have a crisis every Christmas?
Yeah, and I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better. We're seeing burnout amongst staff, aren't we? People leaving right across the board, whether it be nurses or doctors, many going abroad to work in other healthcare systems. And as Polly points out, so many of the papers talking about problems in the NHS, really all those cracks within the NHS have been laid bare during this pandemic. And one wonders at what point becomes the time we actually say we need to talk about whether or not the NHS is fit for purpose, because it is such a non-politically successful issue. People don't want to go on that in an election.
It's still a huge. It's very difficult to talk about any kind of reform or structural reform of the NHS. And in a sense, I think the story that Polly's picked out points to the lack of resolution on the social care issue. I mean, we'd forgotten all about the fact that not so long ago, perhaps a couple of months ago, this was a huge political story again, and a controversy for Boris Johnson about what he was proposing to do, and his solution seemed largely to be based on spending more money. And then we got distracted because of all the sort of self-made political problems that Boris Johnson brought along in his wake. And actually, you know, one of the dangers of the media being very obsessed with these sort of internal Westminster issues, as we have been for a few weeks, is that we don't look at the substance of these kind of issues, and then they keep rolling on.
And do you think it's fair to say that in this country we see the NHS in a very much, you know, it's this way or the American way, but there are different ways that we can approach healthcare. We only have to look across into Europe to see that you can have a kind of insurance-based policy which isn't paid for by your employer. It doesn't have to necessarily mean that lots of people will go without healthcare like we see in the States. I mean, do you think we need to have a grown-up debate about the NHS?
It's funny, isn't it, the way the NHS is the unifying national religion that holds us all together. And I think we get something, actually, from that sense of national identity around this choice we've made to share health costs between the whole population. The problem is that does sort of crowd out any alternatives, and also any story about reform gets turned into, oh, you're trying to privatise the NHS. Nobody wants to buy the NHS. It perennially loses money. And I think there are lots and lots of delivery models, and you don't need to have every single person employed by the government to have a healthcare system that is funded by taxpayers. But the most important thing for me is thinking about prevention. We always think we want more hospitals. Actually, it'd be better if we needed fewer hospitals, really, because people were healthier. If we all ate, you know, the fruit instead of the pastries that are in front of us here at GBNews. You know, if we all were healthier, which was one of the promises the Prime Minister made to us after the first wave of the pandemic, there was going to be a kind of get fit, get healthy regime for the nation.
That sort of
all of that has fallen apart, though I have seen, it's also in the papers, he's had a haircut for the new year. So maybe he's once again making some New Year's resolutions for us all to get fit and healthy again.
I wonder if those resolutions could include decriminalisation of cannabis. It's always an interesting debate.
Well, not as far as the government's concerned. No, what I've picked out is a story on the front page of The Telegraph that Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, of course, is looking to decriminalise under 25s found with certain Class B drugs. And I think he's planning to roll out this scheme in, not across the capital, but in certain London boroughs. It says here Lewisham, Bexley and Greenwich. Now, this does put him on a collision course with the government and also with his own party leader, Sir Keir Starmer. And I think there are some arguments to be made. I don't favour them, but I think there are some strong arguments to be made for decriminalising. But definitely, the government will argue that they have introduced in recent weeks, actually, a pretty comprehensive and very well-resourced new approach to tackling drugs, which was a combination of sticking with criminalisation, but also encouraging people found with drugs to have rehabilitation. And that seems to me to be a much more comprehensive approach than we've seen from many governments, for some time to come. So whilst we often sit here in criticism of the government, I think that it remains to be seen whether it can work, but it was certainly an ambitious scheme. But the problem with this approach of decriminalising, particularly under 25s, is when you're dealing with organised crime, these people are incredibly canny at finding the loopholes in the law. So whilst the intention might be to actually treat young people who've experimented with drugs with a bit more leniency, the outcome may be that they're even more open to exploitation.
Yeah, interesting. And the debate, I suppose, then is about whether or not this will be the start of a softer attitude to cannabis in the UK if it's happening in certain parts of the capital. We've seen a softening of attitudes in the States, in many parts of Europe. We're a bit behind the curve on that. Do you think it's going to creep in here?
I think it's still absolutely up in the air, and the government, as Joanne says, it has set its face very firmly against any decriminalisation. I think decriminalisation is sort of the worst of all worlds, of just turning a blind eye to what remains criminal behaviour, because the problem, in my view, around the cannabis market is, cannabis is dangerous, as is alcohol. But we decided that cannabis, which we are never going to eliminate, is going to be provided by unregulated criminals, which puts everybody at risk. If you decide to legalise it, as they have in some states and in some parts of Europe, you can then regulate. You can put labels on about how strong things are, and you can have companies who can be regulated and scrutinised and closed down if they break the rules. If you leave the cannabis supply in the hands of criminal gangs, but just stop bothering to enforce the law, that you get none of the benefits. I think you either need to come up with a war on drugs that might actually succeed. I've yet to see a plan for that, but nevertheless, open-minded about it, or just go, actually the best thing to do with dangerous stuff is to regulate it, and that is best done in the legal market where you can have, the systems we have for alcohol.
Well, if you do that for cannabis, then why wouldn't you do that for MDMA and for cocaine and all the stronger drugs?
Great questions.
I mean, that's probably why...
And in fact, this particular plan doesn't just cover cannabis. It would include ketamine and some other Class B drugs as well. The effects of which I don't think we're necessarily too aware of. We do know that cannabis is actually extremely dangerous, that it's contributing to a huge mental health crisis, that it's contributing to absolute tragedies around, different types of psychosis. And apart from that, on a more mundane level, it's robbing a lot of young people of their ambition.
It's no question, right? Record, so the argument is complex. Let's talk about house buying. It's tough out there for people wanting to get on the property ladder. Lockdown has made it even worse. Polly.
No, I genuinely was surprised by this. So statistics out by the Yorkshire Building Society, actually record highs in the number of first-time buyers, despite the fact that house prices are also at record prices. Is this to do with stamp duty? It's to do with three things. The stamp duty exemption that kind of really sort of put rocket boosters under the market. Also, lots of people saved money during the pandemic. We had this weird kind of bifurcation with a group of people, probably 20% of the population, who went into extraordinary financial difficulties, but actually another big chunk who ended up saving money on the commute, build up lots of savings, and they can put that into a deposit.
Businesses going under and having a terrible time, but on the other hand, people not going out, people saving, not going on holiday, and then suddenly finding they've got enough for a deposit to get their first home. Okay, so positive side. I love a positive side to the lockdown. I'm hoping we've still got time to take a look at the Times page 11. question, Joanne. This is about batteries going out of use. Samsung TV remotes are now to use radio waves.
Yes, I mean, this appealed. I'm never one for technology stories particularly, because they always seem to, go over my head in terms of trying to understand how they're actually powered. But this is a really interesting idea from Samsung. They're looking to introduce, at this stage, only a TV remote, because it needs to be a relatively small device that can actually be powered from the radio frequency waves that they would be able to harvest, is the term, from household Wi-Fi systems. So, it's a small thing at this stage, but it looks as though the potential to get rid of batteries and other sorts of devices might be there in time. And though it's not mentioned in this story, what I thought was intriguing about this is that we are highly dependent in the West on batteries that are largely, predominantly produced in China. So it could, have the potential for a lot more sort of independence in the economy as well.
That's always going to be a good thing. Joanne Nadel at Polly Mackenzie, you have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed.
You're listening to and watching GB News on television and on DAB+. I'm Eamonn Holmes. The Christmas period can be stressful enough without a potentially troubled marriage being thrown into the mix. Divorce Day, or D-Day, is the first working day after the Christmas break where lawyers see a spike in inquiries for divorce, and that day is today. Let's go to psychotherapist Lucy Beresford for her take on all of this. Lucy, can you understand why it is today, or explain to us why today throws up such results?
Yes, I think in particular the Christmas period can make it very stressful for couples thrown together. It is a mirror, really, of what we had throughout the whole of the pandemic, which was that couples spent more time than they would have ordinarily expected to have spent with their loved one, to the extent that then their loved one ceased to be their loved one any longer. And I think what a lot of people do also at the end of the year is that they reflect on the year that's gone and their life as it is now and what they would like to see in their life going forward. And therefore, for the very beginning of the year, some people make a resolution and they say, I actually want something better, particularly in my romantic life. And that's why there are so many referrals, but also not referrals just to lawyers, but also to marriage dating websites such as Ashley Madison, who have seen a 7% increase in the number of people approaching them to sign up as they had last year.
Well, so actually, they say that one of the reasons people are approaching them is to maybe keep their marriage together, keep their marriage intact. And there's a radical solution to that, according to them, which is?
To have an affair. So very counterintuitive. Part of their research has shown that fully 80% of their members have no interest in actually getting a divorce or even separating from their primary partner, but the way in which they can envisage being married, staying married, is by actually having an affair. And I think
Lucy,
for many people that will be counterintuitive.
Lucy, would that be an open affair or a secret affair, or does it matter?
Oh, well, I think psychologically it matters hugely. If you discovered that your partner was leading a secret life, then that causes untold torment to you and threatens and jeopardizes the relationship that you have. What I think is really interesting, which actually came out in some other research from Ashley Madison last year, was that more and more couples are having those conversations about whether monogamy is really something that they think they're cut out for. As you can imagine, many people are now living well into their 90s, maybe to over 100. Can you imagine being with the same person for 60, 70, 80 years? Many of us can, but many of us can't. And therefore, what seems to be happening is that people are having more conversations about what they want going forward. And as you say, that could mean a more open relationship.
Interesting. We look at the year that has passed. The pandemic continues. We're talking about this terrible situation of fuel poverty and price rises and whatever ahead of us in the new year. So look, it doesn't appear to be getting any better with the pressure being placed on couples. Any recommendations as to how to keep your marriage going, save that situation, keep the spark there?
Well, keeping the spark alive is very much about trying to tap into how you were when you first met. So try to introduce a lot more spontaneity. We can all get into a rut or a groove in our relationships. And if you can inject some spontaneity, a little bit of physical fun, but also just be more playful. Just try to get back to the days when you didn't have such cares and responsibilities, mortgage, children, elderly parents. That can actually be the way forward.
What's your view on an affair as recommended by this dating site, Ashley Madison?
Well, my TED Talk actually was about infidelity and whether you should stay or go once you've discovered that infidelity has rocked your relationship. And my theory is that particularly if it's a one-off, or actually arguably only if it's a one-off, it's probably something that could turn your marriage around, because you look at the things that have perhaps fallen by the wayside, the efforts that you haven't been putting in and your partner hasn't been putting in. So it can act as a really powerful wake-up call to couples who actually slam on the brakes and think, is this really what I want? Is this actually what I want to actually destroy the relationship? So I think if you're dealing with a one-off affair, there is a lot of hope. If you're dealing with someone who's a serial cheater, that's a completely different story.
OK, well, a sobering message, but certainly there seems to be a lot of fact behind this. Lawyers flooded with people who have said, I've had enough of this relationship. That day is today, Tuesday, the 4th of January. And what about psychotherapists? Would you see that reflected in your profession as well? People seeking help?
Psychotherapists habitually see a huge spike in referrals after Christmas and after the summer holidays, which again, I think speaks to those compressed periods of time where couples expect things to be perfect, in fact, really hope things will be good. We'll have a Christmas, we'll all get on, we'll have a perfect summer holiday, everything will get sorted out. And when that doesn't happen, it ends up being almost the final nail in the coffin. And that's the moment at which people seek out professional help.
OK. Well, Lucy Beresford, psychotherapist, thank you very much indeed. Divorce Day, it is today, or D-Day, the first working day after the Christmas break, where lawyers see a spike in inquiries for divorce. Think on that.
Time is 7:55. Coming up on Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel, we'll be joined by the Shadow Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, just after 8 o'clock to discuss the challenges facing pupils, parents and teachers as they go back to school after Christmas break. That's after the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold with snow showers and gales in the north. Early rain will clear the south. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will be windy and noticeably colder than of late. There'll be blustery showers in the west, but remain dry with sunny spells in the east. The southeast will have a band of rain with a little hill snow possible. This will slowly clear southeastwards with brisk northerly winds following. Wales will be cold with blustery showers in the west. Elsewhere, it will be dry with sunny spells, but it will feel cold in the wind. And it'll be a noticeably colder day than of late across the Midlands. It'll be mostly dry, plenty of sunny spells, the odd shower possible in the north later. The strong northerly or northwesterly winds will add to the cold feel across the northeast of England. It will be mostly dry here with sunny spells. Isolated showers are possible in the west. It's going to be bitterly cold today across the whole of Scotland with gale-force northerly winds. There'll be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers, bringing blizzard conditions at times. Northern Ireland will be cold and windy. There'll also be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers with the snow mainly over the hills here, feeling very cold in the wind. And it will remain cold for all this afternoon, especially in that wind. Wintry showers extend into North Wales. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you this Tuesday.
Canary Islands, sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Hello, good to see you. It's 8 o'clock on Tuesday the 4th of January. This is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. This is GB News TV and radio.
You can watch us on the TV as well as listen to us on DAB+. It is a historic morning for us. We're testing our new transmission. Let us know how it's sounding and where you're listening from.
Coming up, it's back to school time for children across the UK. We'll be speaking to Labour's Shadow Education Secretary in just a few moments about the changes needed to keep schools running as COVID continues.
The migrant crisis is back in the spotlight as the number of channel crossings trebled last year. What more can the government do? We'll be live with our Home and Security editor, Mark White. He's in Dover for us this morning.
Plus, the Prime Minister's promised no new restrictions despite COVID cases rising. Going to be speaking to leading scientists about the current impact Omicron is having on hospital and people's lives.
And as ever, we want to hear from you. We've been asking this morning, are you worried about your children as they head back to school? Have you been able to get your hands on a lateral flow test? Are you happy that secondary school pupils are going to be wearing masks all day?
Yeah. We also want to hear about your experiences with the pieces of paper that's stuck on your windscreen, parking tickets. So join the conversation. You can email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk or you can tweet at gbnews. Parents are sending children back to school this week as the Christmas holidays end, but there's a bit of uncertainty about the school term as Omicron continues its spread.
With staff shortages, COVID testing and now masks in classrooms, what will school look like when those gates open, or they're opening as we speak? Delighted to say Labour's Shadow Minister for Education, Bridget Phillipson, is joining us on the programme this morning. Very good morning to you. Happy New Year.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Look, lots of eyes on the school gates this morning. It's going to be a very different scene as pupils go into the classrooms. What do you make of how Nadeem Sahawi has set us up for the spring term so far?
Look, it's really important that children are back in school learning and playing together. It's so incredibly important, and, you know, they have missed so much time already, so it's really vital that they stay in class. I think what we've seen from the government, however, doesn't put in place what's needed to make sure that we keep down the transmission of COVID within schools. So, before Christmas, we were saying that the government should use that break to roll out the vaccine to all eligible children. It's been a huge missed opportunity to do that. We also need to see proper ventilation in our schools. Head teachers are being told just to open the windows and put children in coats. I don't think that's good enough. And on testing, we know that many parents have experienced difficulties getting their hands on testing kits, and it's vital that we all test our children to make sure that we're kind of keeping control of the virus.
Well, we know what's wrong, Bridget. What would you do to put it right?
Yeah, firstly, we would make sure that there was proper ventilation in every classroom, so we'd take decisive action on that. Secondly, where it comes to the vaccine, we would have made sure that over Christmas we had walk-in clinics so that all eligible children were able to get the vaccine as quickly and easily as possible. And third, we've seen a lot of misinformation around about the vaccine. It's really important that we tackle that, but also that we stop people hanging around school gates, peddling misinformation to parents and also frightening and alarming children. So that's some of the measures that we would be taking right now to get on top of things. But longer term, we need to make sure that our children see a proper recovery from the pandemic. So we've got a really ambitious, costed plan around making sure that children do have that recovery from all the time that they've missed out of class.
Tell us more about how you would deal with parents, how you would bring them on side, because we all know there's a lot of parental resistance to vaccination.
I think it's really important just to reiterate that the vaccine is safe and effective, and that obviously if we get vaccine rates to a higher level, it will make it easier to keep schools open, to keep children in class and to drive down transmission. My experience, I have to say, is that I've heard from lots of people that they want to see their children vaccinated, but actually getting an appointment hasn't always been very easy. I think we need to see more around walk-in clinics, around pop-up clinics in schools, just to make it as easy as possible for children and parents. I think access is as much of an issue as misinformation, but I just would reiterate the vaccine is safe, and it's really important that we all take it up when it's our turn.
Bridget Phillipson, there is no scientific consensus on whether or not children as young as 5 should be given the vaccine. There is agreement in the over 12s. There are some countries, many countries in the world, who are vaccinating primary school-aged children. But as I say, there's no unified consensus on that. It's very confusing for parents, and obviously they're very concerned when they're making decisions for somebody else. Where do you stand on that?
Of course, and parents want to have all the information available and in front of them. I mean, we have seen the government announce that children who have particular health conditions or those who live with those who do will be eligible for the vaccine when they're aged 5 to 11. But where it comes to children already that are eligible, so the over 12s, it's only around half who've been able to take up that vaccine. I don't think that's good enough, and I think we should really redouble our efforts on it. But where it comes to rolling out the vaccine more widely to other groups, we'll be guided by the evidence on that, and I hope the government will be putting forward what the position is in due course.
That was Bridget Phillipson. She's the Shadow Education Secretary, speaking to us live from College Green in Westminster. Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.
Let's speak now to the Executive Principal of Post-16 Education at the Gorse Academies Trust, David Holtham. Very warm welcome to you. Have you got any of that first day anxiety as pupils head back into the classroom?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's not a normal first day back in January. So, yeah, there is definitely some anxiety in the building this morning.
Yeah, we do have to say there, David, I mean, you heard Bridget Phillipson talking about the changes she would make if she was in power. What has it been like for you trying to bring in what changes you've been asked to so far?
Well, it's complicated because obviously the government guidance comes out quite late. So you're finding out, on the Sunday before you return in on a Tuesday, what new expectations are. And often you're reading things in the media before you're told firsthand. So those things do provide a challenge. This morning, for example, in our schools, we're going to be testing potentially, 400 or 500 young people a day as they return into our schools. And that does cause really significant logistical challenges for schools who are obviously designed to deliver education and not necessarily diagnostic testing.
So how do you feel today? Are you on it?
I'd like to think we're on it. Yeah, we're struggling also with staff absence. Most of our schools have got 10 to 15 members of staff absent this morning. So that adds another dimension to the challenges that we face. But, like all organisations, when confronted with challenges, you do try and rise to the challenge and do the best that you possibly can. And I think that's what will be taking place in Gorse Academy schools today.
And look, you can understand why the government left decisions on mitigations in schools till the last minute, because they wanted to get an idea of the picture over the Christmas period. Look, how are you approaching those staff shortages? We know that Nadeem Sahawi's Department of Education want retired teachers to come back into the classrooms. They're suggesting merging year groups and classes. Do you think that they're workable solutions?
I think the first of those two solutions, looking to retired teachers coming back into the profession, is much more complicated than it first appears. You know, they'd all have to be checked before we would be able to have them working in school. So that's quite complicated, and certainly the local experience would be that there is a real shortage of supply teachers in the system. So that's not going to be an easy solution for schools in the short term, potentially in the longer term. In terms of merging classes, and that's what we'll be doing. We'll be looking for practical solutions on a day-to-day basis to manage staff shortages. And if you think that in a typical school we might have 10, maybe even 15 teachers off today, that could be 40 or 50 classes that wouldn't be able to be covered by a teacher. So it is quite a difficult logistical operation first thing to get those classes sorted out. But that's what we'll be doing in this week, definitely.
David, we're talking about staff shortages in different professions all around the country. Now, the teachers you have let off, if you could give us a number as to how many aren't there, and are there layoffs because they're suffering from COVID or they've got to isolate from COVID?
I think obviously it's pretty early in the morning now, and staff will be just contacting us about whether they're going to be in for today or potentially some of this week. I think we're looking, the evidence yesterday was telling us that we'd probably be 10 or 15 staff short in most of our schools. And most of those were people who are actually suffering with COVID and were having to isolate.
There is a government view, though, about non-teaching staff may be enough to take over the duties of the teachers that are absent. What's your view on that?
Well, again, there's the short term and there's the long term. You know, in the short term, we will do things. We're already using sort of central staff who are non-teachers to plug gaps in non-frontline classroom-based activities, if you like, to make sure that we can free up staff to get into classrooms who are able to do so. In the longer term, you can do things in the short term that are going to allow us to function. Whether that means that students are getting a really high quality educational experience would be a different matter. And in the long term, that becomes more challenging as we sit here now preparing for potential exams in the summer. That would give us some level of anxiety if staff shortages are going to continue over a prolonged period of time.
Yeah, well, one thing is for sure, it's going to be a bumpy spring term. We wish you the very best at plugging those shortfalls and keeping those kids educated throughout the coming weeks. David Holtham, Executive Principal of Post-16 Education at the Gorse Academies Trust. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Let's take a look at some of the... Thank you. Top stories that are making the news today. An American judge has to rule whether a civil sex lawsuit can be brought against the Duke of York.
Virginia Giuffre is suing Prince Andrew for alleged sexual assault when she was a teenager, but the Duke's legal team deny the allegations and will attempt to dismiss the case at a hearing today. Yesterday, a document was made public revealing the terms of a $500,000 payout from convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein to Ms Giuffre, which prevented her from speaking publicly.
Also in the United States, the founder of a blood testing startup has been convicted of fraud. Billionaire 37-year-old Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty on 2 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit fraud and could face 20 years in jail. The Theranos had been valued at $9 billion after claiming it had revolutionary finger prick blood testing technology that never actually worked.
Priti Patel says more historical convictions for crimes involving homosexual activities are to be pardoned. The government's previously cleared some former offences, but it was deemed too limited by campaigners. The new measures have been extended, covering any form of crime that involves 2 consenting adults. The Home Secretary says the scheme aims to right the wrongs of the past.
More than 500,000 people have now signed a petition to get Tony Blair's knighthood rescinded. The former Labour Prime Minister was included in the Queen's New Year's honours, but the decision's caused controversy. People are unhappy about Blair's role in leading the UK into war with Iraq in 2003, with a statement on the petition saying that he caused irreparable damage to the fabric of the nation's society.
On now to a story that is sure to dominate the headlines in 2022. And new figures show that more than 28,300 migrants crossed the English Channel into Britain last year. That's 3 times as many as the year before.
But ministers have been warned that unless the government changes what they call its dangerous and callous policy, more arrivals and more drownings will happen this year. A Home Office minister said the government is reforming its approach to asylum through its new plan for immigration. But will that be enough? Well, GB News' Home and Security Editor, Mark White, joins us now live from Folkestone. Very good morning to you, Mark. Look, a highly emotive issue, this, not least for those living on the south coast of England who almost daily now see boats bringing people illegally across the Channel. We now know last year was a bumper year. Does the government have a grip of this?
Frankly, no, they didn't last year, and it's difficult to see meaningfully what they will be able to do in the year ahead, even with the introduction of the Borders and Immigration Bill, without actually tackling the issue on the other side of the Channel. That is where the real issue is in terms of these boats being pushed into the water in the first place. Once they're in the water and the engines started on these small inflatable boats, that's it. You know, the French get criticised, obviously, for not intercepting them and turning them around. The French say, well, we can't because the migrants threaten to jump in the water and evade us. Well, that is questionable just about how determined or otherwise the French are actually to stop them. But before they even get in the water, it's this issue of them leaving the beach in the first place and whether the French are providing enough in the way of police and border agents on their shores to stop the boats leaving. Last year they didn't. This year, well, we're getting reports that the first migrant boat has crossed the English Channel or is in the process of trying to cross the English Channel and is being intercepted by Border Force as we speak, the Border Force vessel Hurricane, en route to do that. So this is just 4 days into the new year. We've had very bad weather conditions for the past week or so in the Channel. It's not great out there at all today, but it has subsided to the point where the boats could just about get offshore. A couple tried last night to get off. They didn't make it into the water because of the height of the waves. Others overnight, we understand, have made it into the water, and at least one is now at that halfway point crossing into UK waters and being intercepted as we speak.
But Mark, why the surge in migrant crossings? I mean, we're talking about, they've trebled, and we're talking about nearly 30,000 people in the last year reaching the UK illegally. Now, you've mentioned maybe the French are not doing enough. You've mentioned that these gangs exist in terms of ferrying them across or having that business, as it were, existing. Is there anything else you can add to that, or are those basically the reasons?
Well, I think there's no doubt, Eamonn, that conditions in countries such as Syria and Afghanistan push quite a few genuine refugees out of those countries fleeing persecution and potential death. But there is a big issue in terms of whether these people should have claimed asylum in the first safe country they reached, rather than then trying to get all the way up to the UK and across the water. But I think mixed in with a lot of the refugees, a very sizable number of people who are coming across for economic reasons. Yes, they are leaving countries that it is very, very difficult to manage and make a living and survive in, with often very dysfunctional governments at best, but they don't necessarily qualify under the definition of a refugee. So they're in there, they're in the mix, and they're coming through. But it is this business model that is working, I'm afraid, at the end of the day, which is the draw, because the people traffickers are able to say, look, we got 8,000 odd people in 2020, we more than trebled that in 2021. As long as you get into the water, then you are pretty much guaranteed that you are going to be picked up by the UK Border Force or the RNLI and returned to the UK, where you enter the asylum system. And once in the asylum system, it is very difficult for the UK authorities to return those who they say don't even qualify for refugee status, because quite a lot of those people who come across throw away their documents. They're told to do that by the criminal gangs, so getting a handle on who they exactly are is difficult, and also returning them to a country and a government that doesn't necessarily want them either is often difficult. So many of these people get leave to remain in this country.
Well, really appreciate your insight and analysis on all of that, Mark. That's Mark White, our Home and Security Editor, live from Folkestone.
He's going to have a busy year, something tells me. Stay with us here on Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. Coming up, it is back to school, back to work as well. Are you up to date with all those latest restrictions? We'll give you all you need to know in a few moments. But first, here's your Tuesday forecast.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold with snow showers and gales in the north. Early rain will clear the south. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will be windy and noticeably colder than of late. There'll be blustery showers in the west, but remain dry with sunny spells in the east. The southeast will have a band of rain with a little hill snow possible. This will slowly clear southeastwards with brisk northerly winds following. Wales will be cold with blustery showers in the west. Elsewhere, it will be dry with sunny spells, but it will feel cold in the wind. And it'll be a noticeably colder day than of late across the Midlands. It'll be mostly dry, plenty of sunny spells, the odd shower possible in the north later. The strong northerly or northwesterly winds will add to the cold feel across the northeast of England. It will be mostly dry here with sunny spells. Isolated showers are possible in the west. It's going to be bitterly cold today across the whole of Scotland with gale-force northerly winds. There'll be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers, bringing blizzard conditions at times. Northern Ireland will be cold and windy. There'll also be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers with the snow mainly over the hills here, feeling very cold in the wind. And it will remain cold for all this afternoon, especially in that wind. Wintry showers extend into North Wales. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you this Tuesday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I nipped out of the studio there just to hear if the radio was working. And just to remind you, not that the radio is working, that we're working on the radio, because that's where we are today. It's Eamonn and Isabel at breakfast on this Tuesday morning, the 4th of January. We're here on GB News, the TV station, and live on your TV and radio this morning.
Yeah, so many people getting in touch this morning, and it's really great. We said that we're testing our radio broadcasting today, really, and to let us know how you're finding it. And seems to be loud and clear. We've been hearing from people overseas who are listening this morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. Other people getting in touch saying that they've been getting ready for work, watching it on the television, and then taking us with them in the car. That's exactly what we wanted. It is a UK first. We're the only broadcasters doing that today in the UK, and we are delighted to have you with us. So keep doing it. Keep your TVs and your radios tuned.
Please do.
Our way.
Please do. We're talking about back to school.
Yes.
Are you good at going back to school after a break?
I used to get nervous. The night before, and I was getting my kids ready for nursery and school today, and it's a bit of a sort of, have we done all our homework? Have we got all the uniforms sorted? My husband's just messaged me going, where's our daughter's school jumpers? It's a bit hectic, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the habits you form at school, you carry with you for the rest of your life. So if you're worried about going back to school, you'll be worried about going back to work. But we're talking about that return to the classroom. The school bells aren't ringing for the start of class in Wales just yet. Let's go to our reporter, Lily Hewitson, who's got the latest on that one and when exactly those children will be heading back, Lily.
Yes, good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. The school gates are closed for pupils here in Wales over the next few days, whilst teachers and staff make a decision about whether children will be learning online or in the classroom in the coming weeks. Now, the Welsh Government have said that it's up to individual schools to decide for themselves where children will be learning, whether it's in the classroom or whether they'll be at home, and they'll have to make that decision based on the local coronavirus situation in their area. But of course, the people that this is going to affect the most are the children and the families themselves. I'm now joined by Yusra. She's a mother of two from Cardiff. Firstly, Yusra, just tell us, how old are your children? What year are they in school? And what information have you been given by the school about when they'll return back to school?
Good morning. So I have two daughters, Najia, she's 11, and Nibras, who's 10, and they go to grade 7, 6 and 5. I got that confused a second. I got an email from the head teacher before they broke for Christmas, letting us know that it's going to be basically a bit complicated, and they're planning, and we're going to be given 2 days of. They're going to be given 2 days of planning, so they'll start on the 6th of January, and that's pending. It could be remote or in person, so we're not sure yet.
So how frustrating has the lack of information been? How are the girls feeling about perhaps not knowing when they're going to see their friends again next? How are you able to plan in the coming weeks now?
The uncertainty is definitely frustrating. The girls are literally always conversing at home. Oh, do you think we're going to see our friends again? So it's a bit frustrating for me as a parent, but also it should be for the schools as well. The situation is very rapid, and they're not sure. The headmaster and the teachers are doing their best to let us know. And she has emailed us before they broke, and I'm just waiting for an email every day then to let me know.
So the teachers are basically going to be over the next 2 days deciding, which children, are going to be in the classroom and which may be remote. So some online, some in the classroom, and that's going to be up to the schools individually. So there could be, your children could go back to school, but there might be children down the road who might not be able to go to school. So how does that kind of work? How do you feel about that kind of uncertainty for different children, and some children getting the education that they need and they want, and some perhaps not?
My daughter, Najia, especially the eldest one, loves school. She hates the holiday, and she's always waiting for the next day to go to school. And it'd be heartbreaking for her to not have to to go to school again. And it's a bit frustrating for some parents because everyone has to plan, child minding. Some of us are working parents, so it's a bit of, I guess, a dilemma for everyone really at this point. So we just hope for the best really, and I hope all the children get a fair chance to get the education that they need and the experience that they need.
That's what I was going to say about planning. That is what parents need to do. You're looking weeks in advance all the time. So what are parents at your children's schools saying? How are they feeling about the coming weeks? Are they able to get the childcare that they need and kind of have that on standby if the children can't go back to school?
Essential workers always, I guess, get it very hard because they have to be working, and they need to find people to get their kids after school and stuff like that. I'm lucky enough to be able to. My husband is working from home, so he'll be able to receive them at the end of the day. But I do feel horrible for single parents and people who have to really struggle to find the financial means and the security to be able to get their kids, child minding if they have to go to school, or it's just planning is key for everybody, parents, the government, and the head teachers.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining me on the breakfast programme this morning. That's Yusra Elsadig, a mother of two from Cardiff, but Yusra's family, as well as families all across Wales, will be waiting for that key information from their schools over the next few days to find out when exactly their children will be heading back to the classroom.
Lily, thank you very much.
Coming up before 9, top tips for getting into a positive mindset as we head back into work or school from today.
But up next, we'll bring you the latest data on Omicron. Have hospitalisations finally peaked in England? Virologist Chris Smith will be joining us after this.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. Very warm welcome back. The time is 8:30. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. Let's take a look at some of the top stories this morning. The number of migrants attempting to cross the Channel to the UK trebled last year. More than 28,000 risked their lives to make the dangerous journey in small boats. 2021 also saw a record 1,185 illegal crossings in a single day in November. GB News can confirm that this morning the first boat of the year has been intercepted by a French vessel. Motorists in Britain are being hit with more than 22,000 parking tickets per day. According to new research, private firms handed out 4 million fines between April and September. That was despite car usage being down on pre-pandemic levels in the early part of the 6-month period. And David Bowie's estate has sold his publishing rights in a multi-million-dollar deal. Warner Chappell Music's acquired it, with the agreement covering songs from 26 studio albums released during the British artist's 6-decade career. Now, we've been speaking about lots of subjects this morning: Divorce Day, cannabis, our new radio programme. So let's take a look at some of those views that you've been sending in on Twitter and on email. Kevin O'Keefe has got in touch on Divorce Day. It's a day of hope. Yes, he says, I've been single for far too long. Today should bring a few more options. I like your style. Harry has been in touch. Lots of you saying you can hear us loud and clear on the radio. He says he's been listening just outside Ipswich. Congratulations. We've watched GB News since day one. Carry on the good work. Thanks for joining us, Harry. We'd love to hear from you. And Steve saying hi from Thailand, giving a lovely good morning to our newest recruit, the one and only Eamonn Holmes. Yeah, he's going to be taking us through the papers in just a moment. And we will, of course, have more GB views later on in the programme. Do keep your thoughts coming in this morning.
How's it sounding? Can't hear a thing. No, only joking. So I'm sure it's loud and clear. Daily Telegraph today leads with, "We cannot jab the entire planet every 6 months." This quote was taken from their interview with the chairman of the government's vaccine advisory group. Daily Mirror reports on the newly published Virginia Giuffre, Jeffrey Epstein deal. She says she's accused Prince Andrew of sexual assault. The Duke denies that. And is agreeing with Epstein's lawyers in 2009 not to sue anyone connected to him that could be described as a potential defendant. Daily Mail warns of COVID chaos as millions self-isolate. Children returning to school risk being forced to head home if their teachers test positive for the virus. Here's the Express discussing the Prime Minister's hopeful outlook on the pandemic. They say there is reason to be positive, given that Omicron is, according to the paper, considerably milder than previous variants. OK, with me now to discuss, well, what's the point? What's the point? Cannonballs in space, really. What are we going to say? Says it all there. Joanne Nadler, who's a journalist and author, is with me now. Paula McKenzie, who's the chief executive of Demos, the think tank. Very good to see you guys. Paula, you first of all. There's a story on the front page of The Guardian. The head of the National Trust has said she received anonymous death threats during a culture war. What was this over?
So the row was about some of the links between National Trust properties and Britain's colonial history, which some people thought that the Trust should be doing a better job of explaining and contextualising. A sort of big campaign about that, which then led to a counter-campaign as the National Trust agreed to explore its colonial links by people who felt that the National Trust's job was to look after land and property and not talk about history in those details. And, you know, people will have lots of different views about that. But what's interesting to me here is the National Trust boss has revealed two things. First, that she received death threats during the course of that row, but also that she didn't even report them to police because she felt that it was just, you know, business as usual, part of the job. And I think there's something kind of wrong with the culture war. On both sides, you get a tolerance of a level of extremism, threats of violence, when actually what we need to have is to rebuild the skill of having robust disagreements about the points of substance at hand. People have all sorts of things to say about our wonderful National Trust properties, about our colonial history, and it's really important that we be able to have those conversations in a civilised way that doesn't put anybody at risk of receiving death threats and thinking that that is just something to accept as par for the course. You know, it should never be par for the course for anybody to receive a death threat for trying to do their job in the way that National Trust boss and so many of our politicians or broadcasters, so many people experience. And I think we've just got to say, of course we must have disagreements, but there's a line that must not be crossed.
Yeah, that's what we try and advocate here on The Breakfast Show, that disagreements, let's debate them, let's discuss them, but let's do it in a civilised manner.
And I don't think there's any disagreement on that front. No, absolutely.
So we turn now to you, Joanne, and this is an interesting story. Have you ever wanted to join the police?
Well,
because you could.
Well, I think that's perhaps that's why I chose this story, because it could be a change of career for me. But actually, as an older person, or since I've kind of passed middle age, I thought that having the option to do something completely different. I mean, I've always had a career in broadcasting and journalism. You tend to think, you know, you're set in your ways, you can't do something different. This story is about the suggestion that in order to make the police force truly representative of the wider community and truly diverse, that it should really look to recruit people in their 50s and older.
Who have experience of life.
Quite.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite interesting on a number of levels. One, because I think, you know, we do have an ageing population and the police force needs to be representative of all aspects of the population.
Do they have an upper age limit for recruitment?
Well, I think they probably haven't needed to have a specific upper age limit because people limit themselves, as I'm suggesting. But there'll be a lot of reasons why people don't necessarily want to become a police person on the beat. I mean, it could be quite a daunting prospect in many ways. But there will be a whole range of different jobs that you can do within the police force, within the police. So I think it's an interesting idea. And it's come from the president of the Police Superintendents Association, Paul Griffiths. He talks about, you know, different types of training, how you can incentivise older people. But this is something that we should really be seeing across, you know, other aspects of the economy and other aspects of public life.
Well, I think the armed forces are now trying to do this as well, because they realise people are not volunteering for these jobs in a way that they used to.
I think it's absolutely true. And we're now moving into an era where we can expect huge numbers of people to live 100 years. And if you're therefore going to be working potentially for 50 or even 55, 60 of those years, the question of how do you can't do that in a single career. Now, there's big kinds of policing, you know, chasing after burglars in the street, right, is best done by people at the peak of their physical fitness.
It often isn't, though, if you look at something.
But actually, as crime changes, or so many issues, you know, if surgeons can be operating robots, actually then expertise that people might have in their 60s and 70s is valuable, even if you've got a bit of a handshake. Or equally, if cybercrime is at the core of what police are trying to do, then actually expertise, experience is much more important than those kind of physical aspects of policing. And I think we just need to expand our concept on a personal level of how many careers we need to have, how many things we need to try, and what jobs look like. You don't need to be all-purpose for everything.
I could almost transfer everything that you're saying to a story that there's front page of the Star today. There's a lot to be said for a fling, and this is from a dating agency, right, which says that, you know, if you're going to be married, you were talking about living to 100. If you're going to live to 100 and you're going to be with the one person all your life for that, could having a fling save the relationship?
You're asking me?
I'm asking you.
Well, I suppose in certain
It's like having a car, trading it in every 7 years.
Whilst we were sitting behind the scenes, we were having a bit of a chat about some of these issues because of what you were discussing about Divorce Day.
Yeah.
And I think it's possible that certain marriages which deserve to have longevity and which would bring company to people in their older age might benefit from not divorcing and from allowing a bit of sexual experimentation, if you like, earlier on with other people, but then coming back together, you know, in older life.
I think the crucial thing is honesty. If you decide to have an open marriage or a period of tolerance between consenting married couple, that seems to me totally fine. If you're going behind somebody's back, then that, I think, is going to end up being toxic to the enduring kind of relationship that Joanne is talking about. Certainly, at the moment, I'm still in the camp of perfectly happy with my husband. One's enough. I haven't got time or energy. I've got 3 small children. Goodness,
maybe you should enter a new career for you two could be agony aunts. Then for that, maybe that's it.
We're open to it.
Yeah,
we'll put a slot in your show, Eamonn. We're up for it.
We'd probably quite a good pair because we'd probably approach things from a slightly different perspective. So
thanks for your approach
person in
today.
agony would have some choice.
Thanks, Joanne Nadler and Polly Mackenzie there for our paper reviews this morning. Now, here's Isabel.
The horror of having a fling. I'm with you, Polly. I've got small kids. Can't think of anything worse. And honesty is always the best policy. Now, up next, if you've watched me on Breakfast here at GB News in the past, you'll be familiar with our next guest, the wonderful Janie Holiday. She's so good I brought her with me to the weekdays. A very warm welcome to you, Janie. She is, of course, a mindset coach, joining us from Sidmouth in Devon this morning. I suppose, Janie, your services needed right now more than ever as people embark on a new year and all the anxieties around school and work.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Isabel. Thank you for having me on this show. Well, I've just dropped one of my 3 children off to school. I don't know about anybody else, but as a parent, I was checking my emails at 6 o'clock this morning, wondering whether it was going to actually happen. My other 2 older ones are back into school tomorrow. I think what we need to do as a nation is ease ourselves into this year as much as possible. I think if we can just go in with a little bit of trepidation without being too negative, but also arming ourselves with what I call a useful life toolkit, whether that's mindset, practical things that we can do. I think we've all got used to, haven't we, that background anxiety, stress, just behind the scenes. We know things can change at any time. So as everybody goes into a new year, new term, if you've got kids going back to school, I think it's about just going in nice and gently and also really supporting each other. I think that's a really important point to make.
I follow you on Instagram and I saw that over the Christmas period you bought yourself, or I don't know if it was gifted, a journal. You've been journaling with your hopes and ambitions, and you've talked before about the importance of inspiration. Tell us more why that can be really important at this time of year.
Yeah, so, well, the definition of inspire is to breathe life into, one of my favourite definitions. And I think the pandemic has taken so much life out of us. I think one of the greatest things that you can do is to start the day grounding yourself, connecting yourself. I know not everyone's into journaling. If it's better, just get yourself a notebook and call it a notebook. But I always like to start the day just asking myself a couple of questions, how I can set the intention to have a calmer, more positive, enjoyable day, those kinds of things. We're a very busy generation. Obviously, this breakfast show is full of positive news, and I know you're really trying to get that message across, but there has been a lot of doom and gloom. And when you start your day focusing on those negative and difficult things, you actually end up carrying that with you. So just little simple things, a few minutes morning and evening, bit of time to connect with yourself, it really does go a long, long way for sure.
So what would you say to people, and I know so many people who feel like this, who feel like their work or their marriage, whatever their personal situation is very toxic. They can't escape it. They're carrying all of that with them. It's so easy to say, try and find your positive mindset. What can they do? Is it about looking for the little things? Is it about making sure that they're kind to themselves? It's that inner voice. What would your advice be to someone that's dealing with a toxic environment this new year?
Well, I think it's a difficult one. And yeah, you're absolutely right. There's the small things that you can do. But I think it's also reminding ourselves that we do have the power within us to create change and to change the end of our story. You talked this morning about divorce and things like that. A lot of people are worried as we go into the 3rd year of the pandemic. I think it's always reminding ourselves that we've got a lot of inner strength, a lot of inner resilience, and actually, most importantly, we need to connect with what is most important to us. A lot of people don't know what their core life values are, so they set to and create a life that's really not one that fits with their values, and then they feel disconnected affected, or they bring in or surround themselves with people or circumstances that go against those kinds of things. And I think it's also really important to remind ourselves that we do only have one life. Sometimes we need to dig a little bit deep to push ourselves through, and it's reminding ourselves that our current reality is not our final destination. We can change so many things, but I think as we start into a new year, particularly with what's going on, it's about starting small, and perhaps for some people for the next few weeks, just really think about what is most important to you.
And the power of saying no, Janie. You're just seeing in one of the papers, make this the year not to be influenced by the latest trend.
Oh, well, I talked with you on the Sunday show, didn't I, about the importance of saying no, because when you say yes to something, you are indirectly saying no to something else. It goes back to what I was just talking about. What's important to you? The definition of inspire, as I said, is breathe life into. So many people make choices. They surround themselves with energy vampires. They do things that they don't really want to do. So empower yourself to be a bit brave and a bit courageous, and to really check in with what's important to you. You know, we only have a certain amount of hours in a day, so priority is such a key thing, regardless of where you are in your life, doing the most important things that take you to where you want to be, and remembering that you can still be a wonderful human being and still say, no, I've got 3 kids by myself. I can't say yes to everything, but it's about making peace with that and giving yourself permission to do what's really right for you. Self-care, mental health, so important, especially at the moment.
Ditch the energy vampires. Wise words indeed. Janie Holiday, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Isabel.
Yeah, just learning to say no. See, it takes a lot of energy to say no, and a lot of people judge themselves on that. But basically, that, I suppose, what the message was there. We want to hear from you on the show. What is actually your views, your news with all of that? And our Northwest of England reporter Bradley Harris has been out there on various doorsteps today. He's in Trawden in Lancashire. Why are you there, my friend?
Well, guys, I'm here in Trawden because I've been finding out what you guys at home think of those big news stories that we're talking about today. We've been talking about the cost of living, and I've been chatting to Sarah Swan in the shop you can see behind me. It's now back open again. It's open right now, in fact. Customers going in to get their local produce. But one thing that they might find is that the cost of groceries, fresh fruit and veg, has gone up by about 5 or 10p, which she says doesn't seem like a lot of money on one single item. But think of that as a big weekly food shop. Think of a big family buying that. That's going to cost a lot of money. Big impact on people's cost of living. So we'll be finding out about that. One thing I love about Trawden, it's a really tiny place. You've got on your left-hand side, you've actually got the pub there, the Trawden Arms. You know I love a pub, and hopefully in about half an hour's time I'm going to be inside that pub chatting to the landlord again about those big news stories, but also what's important to them, because that's also what this is all about, finding out what's important to people. We'll cross the road because I can see that there's somebody at the bus stop waiting for the bus, although the bus just went past, so he might have missed it. Fingers crossed he's not. Hello, sir. You're live on GB News, on television and now on radio from today, just outside the Trawden Arms. We've been chatting to people all morning here. It's all about chatting to local people about what's important to them. One of the big stories is the cost of living, prices going up, food, groceries, energy bills. Have you noticed your bills are going up at the minute?
Yeah, definitely, yes.
Really?
Yeah. We're living in a village like this. A lot of us have cars. You know, there are buses, one's just gone past, but if you've got a car, you notice a great deal that your fuel prices have gone up. Do you know, we were chatting to a guy called Bob earlier who actually, he was saying that fuel again is going up massively. So you're seeing that on your commute then, are you? Yeah, well, yeah, I'm retired, so I don't commute, but yes, every time you fill your car up now, it's considerably more expensive than it was last year.
And you live in Trawden, I imagine, and we've just been into the shop a little bit earlier this morning. Sarah saying that actually the prices are going up by 10p or so. Are you noticing that on your food shop, that prices are going up at the moment? Because they're saying that there's a 3% increase this time last year on food prices.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, we do shop a lot in this shop in Trawden, and I think a lot of people are doing. We're trying to keep it as local as we can. And we like to take our own containers and fill them ourselves, and it's much cheaper, and we're hoping to promote that in the village. that's a good way of trying to save a bit of money rather than buying the pre-packaged stuff, because it is just all going up week on week.
Well, can I just say, there is something special about this village because, as I said earlier, this pub that you can see, there's a brilliant, lovely pub called the Trawden Arms, really traditional, lovely pub, taken over recently by the local landlords, Adam and Joe. Fantastic pub that's been taken over by the local residents here. The shop, again, taken over by the local residents, as well as the library next door. That is unique for a village, for the residents to actually own their own buildings here. That's unique, isn't it?
It is, and it's fantastic. It's taken 7 years, I think, from when we started with all this project in the village, but here we are now, and we certainly are unique, and people seem to be recognising it, and I think it's a way forward for a lot of small villages. It's the only way I think they'll survive.
I was going to say, you know, you walk around some high streets and actually you see shops boarded up, closed, you know, especially with the pandemic, it has had an impact. But actually, this is a bit of a success story, Trawden, and actually something that could be copied elsewhere across the country, maybe.
Definitely, yes, and I think it's starting to be, very much so. You know, this village was like that. Everything was closing. The community centre, we had a library and a children's centre, they were all going to close. And those buildings are now being reutilised by the community, which is really good.
Right, well, look, we talk about fuel, you know, being quite pricey on the car commute. You're clearly waiting for the bus. Hopefully, I did see a bus go past. That wasn't the one that you were waiting for.
No. No, you didn't make me miss a bus, don't worry.
Great, well, look, lovely to chat with you. I'll let you get on with your journey. Good to chat with you. This is what it's all about, just coming out and chatting to people on their doorstep or even at the bus stop to find out what people think about those big news stories this morning.
Thank you, Bradley. Very much appreciated. Going to Scotland now, Inverness. Have you ever been to Inverness?
I haven't been to Inverness. It's on my list, is it?
Lovely. Caledonian Canal, all that sort of thing. Very, very nice. Inverness Castle is to reopen to the public for the first time in almost 200 years.
Yeah, it's a 19th century building. It's previously been used as a court and a prison, but it's now going to be turned into a tourist attraction. And our Scotland reporter David Donaldson has more.
It dominates the skyline of the Highland capital, but now Inverness Castle is to be transformed. £18 million of funding from the Scottish and UK governments will see it undergo a makeover to help attract more tourists to the area.
I'm really excited to let the public inside and also just to enjoy the building and the castle grounds themselves. We really want to bring the whole of the castle area into the public realm so that people from the Highlands and visitors to the Highlands can really have a place to just go and enjoy, whether they go into the visitor attraction or the restaurant or the shop. Whereas focusing as much on the grounds themselves as we are on the building, just so that it's a great place to go and visit and stay for a while.
Over the centuries, previous castles were attacked and burned down. The last of these was destroyed by Bonnie Prince Charlie's Jacobite forces before the Battle of Culloden in 1746. But despite its grand history, the castle isn't being turned into a museum.
This is an example of one of the old cell doors that we've revealed that was covered over in plasterboard. And you can see that it's really tight, small space, and that was symptomatic of the whole building. You came into your cell block, the window was tiny, the bars were over the window, but we're going to try and keep these so that as you go around the building, you can read the story of how it used to be. And this space is going to become enclosed by a new single-storey link building. And the other interesting thing is the modern cell block, which was just behind me until recently, has now been demolished, and for the first time we're seeing the original door openings on the back of the South Tower and the space as it's going to be in the new link building.
Highland Council are also working with the Great Tapestry Company to help produce the story of the Highlands.
Great Tapestry of Scotland is a chronological recording of the history of Scotland. We're working with the Great Tapestry Company who created the tapestry and gala shields, but this time it's not a history of the Highlands, it's the spirit of the Highlands told through the panels. So the Great Tapestry Company will work with the same themes that our designers are working with, but then they'll give the panels to each of the different hubs across the area, and the local stitchers will put their perspective into the panels in the same way where the local stitchers for the Great Tapestry added their own dimension to the themes that the Great Tapestry Company gave them.
Work here is due to get underway in February or March this year, with the castle set to open its doors to the public in 2025.
Well, that's very good. Might give that a visit. Love Scotland. I have to say, Scotland. Are you a fan of Scotland?
Well, yes, because I holidayed there as a child, and I have a theory that if you holidayed somewhere as a child, you always have a kind of romantic connection.
It'll always be calling you back.
Yeah. So love it there.
Very good. Okay, so that's Inverness Castle. Coming up next, one of our GB News viewers joins us live to discuss her back to school blues. Well, we hope there's a bit of joy in there as well. Find out right after the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold with snow showers and gales in the north. Early rain will clear the south. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will be windy and noticeably colder than of late. There'll be blustery showers in the west, but remain dry with sunny spells in the east. The southeast will have a band of rain with a little hill snow possible. This will slowly clear southeastwards with brisk northerly winds following. Wales will be cold with blustery showers in the west. Elsewhere, it will be dry with sunny spells, but it will feel cold in the wind. And it'll be a noticeably colder day than of late across the Midlands. It'll be mostly dry, plenty of sunny spells, the odd shower possible in the north later. The strong northerly or northwesterly winds will add to the cold feel across the northeast of England. It will be mostly dry here with sunny spells. Isolated showers are possible in the west. It's going to be bitterly cold today across the whole of Scotland with gale-force northerly winds. There'll be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers, bringing blizzard conditions at times. Northern Ireland will be cold and windy. There'll also be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers with the snow mainly over the hills here, feeling very cold in the wind. And it will remain cold for all this afternoon, especially in that wind. Wintry showers extend into North Wales. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you this Tuesday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Clock just hitting 9 o'clock on this Tuesday, the 4th of January. Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. We're on GB News TV and now on your radio.
Yes, you can watch us on the TV as well as listen to us on DAB+. It is a historic day. We're testing our new transmission. We've been asking you all morning to get in touch and let us know where you're listening from.
With the time at 9 o'clock, it's back to school time for children right across the UK.
We'll be speaking to a head teacher shortly about how she's been getting her school ready for the pupils to return.
Make or break for Prince Andrew. A judge will decide whether to throw out the US civil sex lawsuit against him. We have the latest.
Get involved in the conversation this morning. As always, we want to hear from you about the stories that matter to you. We've been talking about, of course, the cost of living being dubbed the year of the squeeze. We've been talking about kids going back to school. Can you get your hands on a test? Are you worried about face masks? Talking about those pesky parking tickets as well, the extraordinary number that keep being given out every day. Let us know your thoughts. Email us, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
Okay, so we're on TV and you may be listening to us on DAB Plus radio as well. If you are, a very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes and this is...
I'm Isabel Webster.
She is. Do you like the idea of a staycation? And if you do, would you... I don't think you can stay in a beach hut, but you can book beach huts. And newspapers reporting today massive queues for a place called Christchurch in Dorset, where it'll cost you about £3,500 to rent.
To rent one?
For the year, yes, to rent. Oh, but they can cost up to, I don't know, 100,000 or whatever.
Well, I suppose in British weather you could do with a beach hut because you never know what you're going to get on the beach. But you do see them, don't you, around Christchurch and Muddyford, where they're all bedecked in gingham curtains and bunk beds and they're all jazzy. It's not like you're just buying a...
Yeah, you can cook your lunch, I think, in them. There's big restrictions. I don't think you can stay overnight.
You can't sleep in them. I bet people do, though.
And it's really, basically, when you think about it, it's a place to go for privacy that you can change into your swimming togs or whatever it happens to be without people looking at you. But I'm not sure. I mean, they couldn't be plumbed for like loos and things like that, which would be.
I don't know, but it would definitely be lovely. In my sort of romantic ideas of how I would look in retirement, I could see myself with a book, maybe a glass of wine, chilling in a beach hut, but probably somewhere a bit warmer, like the south of France.
Yeah, with the hanky on your head.
Hanky on my head.
Yeah. But anyway, beach huts, maybe they're your thing. Maybe your thing.
Yes.
I often think that an SUV, what was it called? The big...
Oh, the camper vans?
Yeah, the big camper van type thing. I often think about that.
I think they'd be awful.
Do you think that'd be bad?
Yes.
But if I was driving it?
Oh, yeah, you'd like that, driving around the States. What about a Winnebago? Those really cool sort of silver spaceshipy ones. Well, maybe somewhere in Yosemite or something. That'd be nice.
They're not called SUVs. They're called recreational vehicles or something. They're called.
Are you?
Anyway, they're just big vans, basically. Earlier in the programme, we bravely asked for some feedback from you, our viewers, on how you think the show is going.
Yeah, this is what some of you had to say. David got in touch. He said he had to contact us to say how much he was enjoying the show. He's watching all the way from Australia. Pleased to hear that. I'd imagine our Australian boss would be chuffed with that. Yeah. Shout out to Angelo there. Natalie, loving the format of our new programmes. Even looking forward to seeing Stephen on Weekend Breakfast as well.
As well as what?
As us, I presume.
What? Yeah.
Don't forget Anne Diamond joins Stephen
Natters.
Dixon at the weekends. Absolute cracker of a pairing, that.
Stuart Baxter, good morning, Stuart. Thank you for your compliments through the show. Bill from Glasgow says, great to have you two on.
You're so humble. Honestly, I love it because there's so many compliments coming into Eamonn just for you at home that don't realise this. You can't read out the stuff that's blowing...
There used to be a show called Superstars.
They just called him a superstar.
It was on BBC One.
Right.
It was Sporting Superstars, and they did all these sort of tests. It was a bit like It's a Knockout or whatever, but they would race each other on bicycles and, climb through hoops and ascend walls, all sorts of things like that.
But it's true. He can't read out all the tweets from his army of female fans. And I have to say, it is an army. And he was saying to me the other day, I'm worried the followers that I'm going to bring to GB News, they're all pretty much female. I said, don't worry, pretty much all my followers are male. So we're a good complement to each other.
Combination there. So we've got to make everything more female-friendly. And it sounds as if the radio is working well as well. Here's Samantha tweeting, I'm watching, and you like the new format as well. You've tried listening by radio player, and the show's coming through loud and clear. Thanks for that. Thanks, appreciate you keeping us up to date there. And if you would, or you do have a beach hut, let us know. Let us know what date it's free.
Look, would you like one, though? I can't think of you being in one.
No, you would only want it if you could, relieve yourself, I suppose.
Oh, crikey.
That's
what the sea's for.
What?
Where are we going?
People do all sorts of things on the beach. You just want your own privacy, don't you?
Yes, you want a bit of privacy and a bit of shelter from the wind. and the kids somewhere to have a chill. Look, should we get on with the news, get on with our top story this morning? Parents are sending their children back to school. They probably have already done. It's 9:05. They'll be sitting down in assembly or registration or whatever it is right now. Holidays are over. There is, of course, uncertainty about how this term's going to look. Omicron continuing to spread. Staff shortages a huge problem.
Yeah, but there's all the problems with it, as Isabel was saying, staff shortage, COVID testing, masks in the classroom. So what will school look like when the students do come back? Is it likely to change? Earlier, we spoke to Labour's Shadow Minister for Education. That's Bridget Phillipson. Here we go.
Incredibly important, and, you know, they have missed so much time already, so it's really vital that they stay in class. I think what we've seen from the government, however, doesn't put in place what's needed to make sure that we keep down the transmission of COVID within schools. So, you know, before Christmas, we were saying that the government should use that break to roll out the vaccine to all eligible children. It's been a huge missed opportunity to do that. We also need to see proper ventilation in our schools. Head teachers are being told just to open the windows and put children in coats. I don't think that's good enough. And on testing, you know, we know that many parents have experienced difficulties getting their hands on testing kits, and it's vital that we all test our children to make sure that we're kind of keeping control of the virus.
Well, we know what's wrong, Bridget. What would you do to put it right?
Yeah, firstly, we would make sure that there was proper ventilation in every classroom, so we'd take decisive action on that. Secondly, where it comes to the vaccine, we would have made sure that over Christmas we had walk-in clinics so that all eligible children were able to get the vaccine as quickly and easily as possible. And third, we've seen a lot of misinformation around about the vaccine. It's really important that we tackle that, but also that we stop people hanging around school gates, peddling misinformation to parents and also frightening and alarming children. So that's some of the measures that we would be taking right now to get on top of things. But longer term, you know, we need to make sure that our children see a proper recovery from the pandemic. So we've got a really ambitious, costed plan around making sure that children do have that recovery from all the time that they've missed out of class.
Tell us more about how you would deal with parents, how you would bring them on side, because we all know there's a lot of parental resistance to vaccination.
I think it's really important just to reiterate that the vaccine is safe and effective, and that obviously if we get vaccine rates to a higher level, it will make it easier to keep schools open, to keep children in class and to drive down transmission. My experience, I have to say, is that I've heard from lots of people that they want to see their children vaccinated, but actually getting an appointment hasn't always been very easy. I think we need to see more around walk-in clinics, around pop-up clinics in schools, just to make it as easy as possible for children and parents. I think access is as much of an issue as misinformation, but I just would reiterate the vaccine is safe, and it's really important that we all take it up when it's our turn.
Bridget Phillipson, there is no scientific consensus on whether or not children as young as 5 should be given the vaccine. There is agreement in the over 12s. There are some countries, many countries in the world, who are vaccinating primary school-aged children. But as I say, there's no unified consensus on that. It's very confusing for parents, and obviously they're very concerned when they're making decisions for somebody else. Where do you stand on that?
Of course, and parents want to have all the information available and in front of them. I mean, we have seen the government announce that children who have particular health conditions or those who live with those who do will be eligible for the vaccine when they're aged 5 to 11. But where it comes to children already that are eligible, so the over 12s, it's only around half who've been able to take up that vaccine. I don't think that's good enough, and I think we should really redouble our efforts on it. But where it comes to rolling out the vaccine more widely to other groups, we'll be guided by the evidence on that, and I hope the government will be putting forward what the position is in due course.
Well, from the Shadow Education Secretary to our Yorkshire and Humber reporter, Kevin Larkin. Now, Kevin has been following this story as well. He's in Rotherham this morning. Kevin, what impact is the new variant likely to have in schools, and what are parents' concerns?
Well, yes, good morning, Eamonn. Yes, it's the first day back after the Christmas break, but the difference from when the schools broke up on December the 17th here in Yorkshire is that Omicron is now the dominant variant here. Before Christmas, it wasn't. There was that surge in London, but in Yorkshire, we had the Delta variant still. And you can see that reflected in the number of cases. On the 17th of December, as I say, when the schools broke up, there were just over 4,000 cases in Yorkshire and the Humber. On the most recent data, that's nearly 5 times higher. at over nearly 20,000 cases. Now, of course, there has been a lot of talk about the Omicron variant being more mild. However, the concern is staff absences and sickness. And I asked Ben Mallinson, who's the principal of the Ruth Gorse Academy in Leeds, how many people he's expecting not to make it into school today.
We're expecting anything between 10 and 20% in terms of our staff absence. But again, their testing has taken place yesterday. Some people are waiting for their PCR test results. We already have reported staff absences, and we will only know student absence rates once the gates open at 8:25 today.
Well, the Education Secretary, Nadeem Zahawi, obviously told you both yesterday, Eamonn and Isabel, that he'd seen absence rate of about 8%, I think, at the end of last term. So if what Ben Mallinson said there is typical of many schools across the country, that would seem to be a significant rise.
Thanks, Kevin. We'll leave it there. Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to now talk about the Prince Andrew situation. So many, this one picture is doing the rounds again of so many newspapers. And that's because an American judge is to rule whether a civil sex lawsuit against the Duke of York can be brought. Virginia Giuffre is suing him for alleged sexual assault when she was a teenager.
Yeah, the Duke's legal team deny the allegations. They'll attempt to dismiss the case at a hearing today. Yesterday, a confidential document was made public revealing the terms of a $500,000 payout from the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein to Miss Giuffre, essentially to silence her, prevented her from involving any other people in the case. So will the Prince ever be brought to justice? Let's speak to the former royal correspondent for The Sun, Charles Ray. A very good morning to you. Look, a really sticky situation, all of this for Prince Andrew, but his lawyers seem to be briefing widely, don't they, in the last 24 hours, and quite confidently that this case is going to be thrown out, that he'll be cleared as a result of this secret deal that was done between his accuser and Epstein.
Oh, good morning to you both, and Happy New Year to everybody there. Well, his lawyers, the various barriers that Prince Andrew and his lawyers have put up, they've been confident all along that each one of those would be thrown out the case. Judge Lewis Kaplan has thrown out everything, and he has shown his exasperation by all the attempts over the last 2 years by the Andrew and his legal team to try to halt this case. And this is going to be a difficult decision for the judge today. I'm not sure whether we're going to get a result today or whether it'll be in a couple of days. But the big question is, to be perfectly honest, why does Andrew need this agreement if, as he says, he is innocent of all these charges? Now, it's not a good look using a 12-year-old agreement drawn up by a convicted sex offender, to try and get out of, answering the questions.
I mean, of course, we should stress at this point that the Duke of York has always strenuously denied all of the allegations that have been levelled at him. But ultimately, this comes down to legal argument, doesn't it? The lawyers can see that this is a good way to put this to bed.
Clear of all charges, guilty or innocent or whatever, the thing is, can he ever recover from this?
Not a cat's chance in hell, to be perfectly honest. The court of public opinion has, for their own reasons, is not backing Andrew. Andrew, in effect, was forced to resign as an active member of the royal family, and there is no way this guy can come back and represent the royal family, even if the case is thrown out or even if he wins it. He won't be able to sell cloakroom tickets at any royal event.
OK, so there might not be any way back to, say, seeing him out and about doing, red carpets or whatever. But if this case is thrown out, perhaps the clamouring for him to lose his title, for him to lose his military honours might stop. I mean, just this week we heard one of the first veterans from the Grenadier Guards coming out saying that he shouldn't be colonel of the Grenadier Guards. It's a highly coveted position and it was bringing disrepute to the forces. And, it's really unfair when he hasn't been on trial, all of this, he would claim. Can that all stop if this ends this week?
No, not at all. All the 9 military organisations do not want him to remain as their colonel-in-chief or the representative. And most of the charities that are left with him also feel the same way. And you mentioned about the loss of the royal title. There is a possibility that he could be asked to relinquish the title, the Duke of York, if in fact the trial does go ahead in the autumn, and he's found guilty, or he's found against him, to be perfectly honest, because it's a civil case, not a criminal case. But the damage has been done, and the big question everybody wants to ask: why do you not put up your own defence? If you say you have no recollection of ever meeting this woman, why don't you come out and give us evidence? Because it's that's the key cornerstone. And if the case ends on a technicality, it's actually going to be much worse for him.
All of this is affecting how we see him, how we perceive him, what he can do, what he cannot do. I mean, he can't be on holiday this week. He can't be there skiing with his wife and daughters, can he?
Well, no, because it would be impossible. Can you imagine what the slopes would be like? They would be filled with skiing photographers all over the place. There's just no way he can step out in public. I mean, he's been hiding away for the best part of a year at Windsor Great Lodge, and let's not forget, he sneaked up to Balmoral when the court ordered that the papers be served on the court papers be served on him. And so there's been all these barricades that he and his team have put up, and it'll be very interesting to see how Lewis Kaplan handles this. I mean, Eamonn and Isabel, I've given up trying to second guess a judge in any court as to what they're likely to do. But if form goes the way he has done in the past, and he will throw this out as well.
Charles Ray, all of this, the backdrop to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee year,
Sure.
Is it going to overshadow the celebrations, or do you think that we'll be able to separate the two?
Well, of course it's going to overshadow the celebrations. I mean, this is a monumental year for Her Majesty, 70 years on the throne. And surely, she's been through enough over the last 12 months, for God's sake. But yes, you're absolutely right. This question is always going to be in the background. And the court case, if it goes ahead, will not happen until the autumn. So it will be hanging over the royal family and the Jubilee celebrations throughout.
Good stuff. Charles Ray, always good to have you on the programme. Thank you so much.
I'm just looking at pictures here of Kate Middleton and the Duchess of Cambridge. Same age as you.
Yeah, big year for us. Both turning 40.
Put you under pressure.
Although the Metro yesterday reported I was turning 50, which is a bit harsh.
No.
Yeah. Kay Middy and I are turning 40 this year.
You're very like her style-wise and things.
I'll take that. Bank
take
it.
that. She doesn't put a foot wrong, does she?
She's great,
And she never takes a bad photograph.
Doesn't, well, unlike me.
Either.
She's got a great temperament, perfect to be future Queen, I reckon.
Yeah. Look, we'll take a break and then we go to join our roving reporter, Bradley Harris, the man who knocks on your door. He joins the viewers once again on their doorsteps to ask what they're looking forward to in 2022. Me, a decent run by Man United. I'd settle for fourth place. That's all. It's not much to ask. Here's the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold with snow showers and gales in the north. Early rain will clear the south. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will be windy and noticeably colder than of late. There'll be blustery showers in the west, but remain dry with sunny spells in the east. The southeast will have a band of rain with a little hill snow possible. This will slowly clear southeastwards with brisk northerly winds following. Wales will be cold with blustery showers in the west. Elsewhere, it will be dry with sunny spells, but it will feel cold in the wind. And it'll be a noticeably colder day than of late across the Midlands. It'll be mostly dry, plenty of sunny spells, the odd shower possible in the north later. The strong northerly or northwesterly winds will add to the cold feel across the northeast of England. It will be mostly dry here with sunny spells. Isolated showers are possible in the west. It's going to be bitterly cold today across the whole of Scotland with gale-force northerly winds. There'll be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers, bringing blizzard conditions at times. Northern Ireland will be cold and windy. There'll also be sunny spells and scattered wintry showers with the snow mainly over the hills here, feeling very cold in the wind. And it will remain cold for all this afternoon, especially in that wind. Wintry showers extend into North Wales. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you this Tuesday.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. The time is 9:22. Thanks for tuning in, be it on radio or TV this morning. We're crossing live now to our GB News Northwest of England reporter, Bradley Harris. He's always on the move. He's always on your doorstep. Where are you now, Bradley? What are you up to?
Yeah, good morning. I'm in Trawden in Lancashire. Beautiful part of the world, lovely village of around 2,000 residents that live here. I've been spending the morning visiting all sorts of places here, and what really strikes me is the community here. There's a real sense of community spirit. Lots of things really close together. You've got the shop and the library just there, the bus stop next there, you've got the community centre, and then just across the road, you know I love a pub, you've got the Trawden Arms, and that's what we're stood outside of now. I've been chatting to people to get their thoughts and reaction to our big news stories of the day. Cost of living was the big one for us. Many people sharing their thoughts on that as prices are starting to rise with groceries and also with bills as well. I want to chat to the landlord of the Trawden Arms. I'm told it's Adam. Hopefully he'll let us in. I can see him coming down now, just to get his thoughts on that. Adam, thanks so much. I'm told you're the landlord of the Trawden Arms. I know you are because also we've met before in the past. Good to see you again. Cost of living then, we've been chatting to people about it this morning. Yeah. Bills going up. Have you seen the price of a pint going up? How has it been affecting you in the public?
We've not put our prices up just yet. We've been absorbing the costs, but yeah, absolutely all of our costs have been going up. Utilities and suppliers.
And for those that don't know and are listening on the radio at the minute, this is a massive pub. It's, well, many years old, beautiful pub, many big spaces inside, lots of wooden tables, lovely wooden beams. It probably takes a lot to keep this place heated then, which comes at a cost.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's we're probably about £25,000 a year in utility bills, and a lot of that is our gas costs. So yeah, so it's not cheap.
£25,000?
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow. And you only recently took over the pub, of course, because this was at threat of closure. You clubbed together with the other residents, £520,000, and here we are. We're standing in it now. It's open. It's thriving. Yeah. How's it been going?
Yeah, it's been going very well. The doors are still open, so that's good. So it's getting supported by the community, but in terms of how Christmas went, if that's what you're asking, November was actually a busier time for us than than December, believe it or not. So that was a little bit worrying. You know, we've got 4 B&B rooms at the side of the pub there, and we had about 50% of our bookings drop off in December, cancellations. Our New Year's Eve, we didn't actually sell all of our tickets for our New Year's Eve party, and we had quite a lot of people that had bought tickets. They decided not to come. So it's been a real tough time for the industry, I think.
Well, look, let's take a look inside if you don't mind. You said your doors are open, so if you don't mind, we'll pop on in. We heard from Eamonn earlier. We were asking kind of how people are looking forward to the new year. Eamonn said that he just wants Man United to get a good run. Okay. What are you hoping for this year in 2022?
Well, we're just still settling into the pub. You know, we've only been here for 2 months, so we're looking forward to our events programme. Really, actually, we've got lots of live music, lots of things to entice people into the pub. We're changing our menu completely. So we've got lots of things that we're really excited about. And hopefully, you know, we can all open everything back up without any restrictions, and we can just get on with our lives. Hopefully, Omicron is, you know, it's becoming endemic. It's becoming something that we can all learn to live with.
Brilliant. Well, Adam, good to chat to you. I'm just, as we finish the end of the show, this is my last interview of the morning. I can see that also Steve, who I bumped into at the bus stop, is here with us as well. You clearly missed your bus then, Steve. Good to have you with us. We'll end with a bell. Last orders here at the Trawden Arms.
That's 2 days in a row you've finished in a pub.
I see what he's doing there.
Yeah,
we've worked out your MO.
Everybody, thanks very much indeed for all your messages, watching us and listening to us. We'll be back to do it all again tomorrow morning. But from me and Isabel, have a good day.
See you.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking cold with snow showers and gales in the north. Early rain will clear the south. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will be windy and noticeably colder than of late. There'll be blustery showers in the west, but remain dry with sunny spells in the east. The southeast will have a band of rain with a little hill